Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by skullslime on Wattpad. Now let's start. Izuku Yagi, before his transformation into Izuku Sauron, possessed a range of extraordinary abilities. He had shape-shifting, superhuman strength and speed, telekinesis, illusory magic, shadow magic, flame magic, regeneration, world manipulation, teleportation, fear invocation, weather manipulation, meteor summoning, necromancy, and the lidless eye. He was a skilled tactician with the power to manipulate souls and command an army of orcs. The world was a rich tapestry woven with countless creatures and diverse peoples, where the bounds of imagination stretched into vibrant realities. One such realm was the enchanting continent known as Middle-earth. This land was populated by sturdy dwarves, spirited hobbits, graceful elves, and resourceful humans, alongside a host of other fantastical beings. A cataclysmic war once ravaged this realm, a battle that would ultimately determine the fate of all its inhabitants. Yet, against formidable odds, the peoples of Middle-earth emerged victorious. Throughout the centuries, their technological prowess blossomed, coexisting alongside ancient traditions as kings and queens ruled justly over their realms. Educational institutions flourished, dedicated to training the next generation of heroes in skills ranging from combat and magic to inventive craftsmanship. For a time, peace reigned as elves, dwarves, and humans cohabited harmoniously. However, as the ages progressed, a remarkable evolution occurred among humans, the emergence of extraordinary abilities known as quirks. These newfound powers brought about a seismic shift in Middle-earth, as some individuals wielded their abilities for malevolence while others chose to become beacons of hope and assistance, earning the revered title of heroes. In this ever-changing landscape, adventurers and explorers set forth to uncover the mysteries of the unknown, driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. Thus, the story of Middle-earth continued, a vibrant blend of courage, magic, and endless possibility. At the pinnacle of heroism stood a legend known as 𝗏𝗏, a figure unlike any other the world had ever witnessed. His remarkable feats and unwavering courage inspired hope in countless hearts. Eventually, this iconic hero chose a different path, embracing a quieter life as he settled down to start a family. With his partner, he welcomed twins into the world, a girl named Izumi and a boy named Izuku. From an early age, it was clear that the two children were distinct from one another, even at just 4 years old. As children approached their 4th birthday, a magical transformation unfolded within them, allowing them to perceive the world in ways they had never imagined. It was a pivotal age, one where their unique quirks and personalities began to manifest, setting the stage for their journeys in a world filled with heroes and dreams. Unfortunately, some did not possess any quirk and were labeled quirkless, facing harassment from others who cruelly told them they did not belong. This was where Izuku learned that he was not as blessed as his sister, and his world would change forever. Izuku Midoriya grew up in a town that seemed to cast a shadow over his very existence. The laughter and joy of his peers rang hollow in his ears, as he was continually belittled, a target for ridicule at every turn. His parents, wrapped up in their own lives, devoted their time and affection to his younger sister, Izumi, leaving him to navigate the world alone and unnoticed. At the tender age of 4, Izuku faced the grim reality of survival. He found himself wandering the outskirts of town, stealthily searching for scraps of food, desperate to stave off the gnawing hunger that threatened to consume him. Each day was a struggle, and he took on small jobs wherever he could, sweeping floors in stores, running errands for the locals, and even delivering groceries, to earn just enough money for the essentials. Yet, life dealt him another cruel twist. His sister, along with a few of his peers, turned their backs on him, subjecting him to relentless bullying simply for daring to aspire to become a hero like his idol, 𝗏𝗏. Unbeknownst to him, 𝗏𝗏 was more than just a hero in his eyes. He was intertwined with his family's secrets. Despite the cruelty that surrounded him, 5 individuals stood by his side, treating him like a true friend and offering a glimmer of hope in his otherwise dark world. Their unwavering support illuminated the shadows of his life. As he grew older, reaching the age of 18, Izuku found himself on the precipice of understanding. The years of hardship had molded him into someone who was no longer just a victim but a resilient young man ready to face whatever lay ahead, determined to carve out his destiny. After a long day of searching for food, Izuku returned to his modest home, the evening air thick with the scent of pine and earth. As he approached, he could hear the lively chatter of his parents mingling with the laughter of his sister, Izumi, and her friends. Intrigued, he paused for a moment at the door, straining to catch snippets of their conversation. It was then that he discovered the incredible revelation. His idol, the hero he had long admired from afar, was none other than his father. The knowledge filled him with a sense of pride and wonder, changing the way he viewed both his family and his dreams. However, when Izumi asked why their father had not given Izuku a quirk, Yagi's response shattered Izuku's hopes, as he expressed doubt about Izuku's potential to become a hero. Izuku stood in the dimly lit hallway, his heart racing as he waited for the last echoes of footsteps to fade away. Once he was sure everyone had left, he stepped through the door of his family home, a place that felt increasingly foreign to him. The aroma of dinner wafted through the air, mixing with the tension that seemed to hang like a heavy cloud over the room. Seated around the table were his family. His mother, Inko, whose vibrant green hair and worried eyes reminded him of the sense of belonging that now felt lost. As her gaze fixed on him, a mix of concern and frustration crossed her face, prompting her to ask where he had been. Silence fell between them as Izuku remained unresponsive, his chest tightening with unspoken words. It was then that Yagi, his father, broke the silence, his tone authoritative yet filled with unease, urging Izuku to answer his mother. Izuku's response was laced with sarcasm, catching both his parents off guard. The sarcasm served as a wall he had built, a barrier against their probing questions. Izumi, with disappointment etched on her face, attempted to bridge the growing divide, but Izuku's sharp words echoed his inner turmoil. Inko stepped forward, her expression softening as she reached out, desperate to connect, asking what was wrong. As she reached out to touch his arm, he recoiled, pushing her hand away defiantly, leaving everyone in the room stunned. He expressed his anger and pain, declaring that she had never cared for him, questioning why she would start now. His words poured out, a torrent of hurt and betrayal. Yagi, trying to regain control of the situation, commanded Izuku to apologize to his mother, his voice booming with authority. The tension in the room was thick, a heavy silence enveloping them as Izuku struggled with the chaos of his emotions. He lashed out, accusing them of hypocrisy and refusing to apologize. He felt abandoned, always overshadowed by his sibling, and expressed the torment he had endured alone. Tears streamed down his face, glistening as they fell to the cold ground. He lamented how he had looked up to Yagi, only to feel betrayed. With a heart racing in frustration, he stormed toward the door, determined to escape the suffocating atmosphere. Attempts to restrain him were futile. In a swift motion, he produced a smoke bomb from his pocket and tossed it to the floor. A thick plume of gray smoke erupted, engulfing the room in chaos. Seizing the moment, he dashed out into the shadowy embrace of the surrounding woods. As he ventured deeper into the forest, Izuku found himself at a secluded cave he often retreated to when the weight of the world became too heavy. Pain resonated within him as he stepped further into the darkness, the damp air thick with the smell of earth and stone. Alone in the echoing chamber, he let his emotions pour out, the cries raw and unrestrained. In a surge of fury, he picked up a nearby rock and hurled it against the cave wall, the sound reverberating through the stillness. As his tears began to recede, a simmering anger took their place, directed at the townspeople and parents who had made his life a minefield of anguish. He felt utterly isolated, consumed by a longing for understanding and acceptance. Then, his eyes caught a glimpse of something glimmering beneath the dirt and gravel. Curiosity piqued, he knelt and began to dig with urgency. Slowly, the object emerged, revealing itself to be a golden ring adorned with intricate, mysterious carvings that sparkled in the dim light of the cave. Feeling a surge of power from the ring, he placed it on his finger. Suddenly, he was overwhelmed by a rush of energy, accompanied by a voice that claimed to be Sauron, expressing a longing to control him. But Izuku remembered all the suffering he had endured and fought against the voice. He declared that he would not become anyone's puppet, asserting his will and claiming the power as his own. Breathing heavily from the struggle, he felt tremendous pain throughout his body as he began to transform. He let out a cry that echoed through the cave before fainting from the intensity. After some time, he regained consciousness and drank some water he had brought with him. As he examined his body, he noticed he had developed muscles and his wounds had healed. Looking into a mirror, he saw that he appeared completely different. Feeling power radiating within him, he concentrated, and flames began to flicker in his hand. Surprised by this new ability, he recalled the voice identifying itself as Sauron. A smirk crossed his face as he vowed to return the kindness he had received, declaring that he would come for everyone who had wronged him. As night fell, he realized he needed to wait for the right moment. While he waited, he contemplated what he could do with his newfound powers, having absorbed not only Sauron's abilities but also his memories. Soon, he heard footsteps approaching and prepared for a confrontation, but he relaxed when he recognized the 5 girls who had always treated him like a normal person: Ochako, Tsuyu, Toga, Mei, and Melissa. As they approached, they drew their weapons, but Izuku raised his arm in a gesture of peace, assuring them it was him. Toga expressed disbelief, prompting Izuku to offer a secret only he would know from their childhood. The girls quickly covered his mouth, not wanting him to reveal any embarrassing stories. Once they settled down, Toga asked about his appearance. Izuku explained that it was due to the ring he had found, which he revealed to them. Melissa recognized the ring and noted its familiarity, and Izuku confirmed it was Sauron's ring. The revelation shocked them, and Toga asked if he meant the Sauron who nearly destroyed Middle-earth. Izuku nodded in affirmation. Ochako urged him to remove the ring, but he reassured them that he had won against Sauron and now possessed his powers, leaving them astonished by the news. Izuku wondered what his friends were doing there. Mei explained that their so-called family had finally noticed him and was searching for him, so they came to check on his well-being. Izuku felt more than okay. He felt amazing. Toga asked what his next move would be, and Izuku revealed his longing for revenge against those who had belittled him and turned his life into a nightmare. Toga expressed her interest in joining him, which surprised Izuku. He questioned if they were sure about this path, to which Ochako affirmed that they wanted to make those who had wronged them pay. She added that he was the only one who had treated them well, while others only saw them for their appearances. She also mentioned that there was strength in numbers. Ochako then revealed another reason for their visit. She leaned in and kissed Izuku, catching him off guard. The others quickly followed suit, leaving Izuku speechless for a moment before he regained his composure. He acknowledged that this meant they were now a thing, and Mei confirmed that they all agreed to share him. Izuku promised to be the best boyfriend he could be, and they all felt happy about it. Curious about how they could assist him, Izuku learned that they planned to join the opposing side and gather information that would be useful to him. He nodded in agreement, realizing he needed to build strength and an army in the meantime. He assured them that he would inform them in advance when he was ready to attack so they could protect their families. Melissa then suggested a potential source for an army. She pointed to a location on a map where some orcs still followed their old ways, meaning they respected strength. If Izuku could defeat their leader, the rest would likely follow him. Izuku raised a concern about the leader having multiple companions, but the girls exchanged glances, acknowledging the truth in his words. Tsuyu remarked that they saw no reason for him to have multiple companions, considering he might be too much to handle as it was. They all blushed, and Izuku cleared his throat, shifting the conversation back to his plan. He intended to gather strength before heading to the mountains. Determined to test his power, Izuku moved to the other side of the cave. He took a deep breath and threw a punch at the wall, causing cracks to spread from the impact. The wall crumbled, and he turned to see the astonished expressions of his friends. He suggested they devise a plan to distract others while he prepared for his next steps. Meanwhile, the Yagis had organized a search party to find Izuku after he had run away. Many people joined the effort, and the Yagis soon learned of the mistreatment he had endured, intensifying their determination to locate him. The girls worked diligently to ensure that the searchers did not discover the cave where Izuku was hiding, hoping their plan would succeed without interruption. After 2 days of searching with no results, on the third day, one of the adventurers announced that they had found something. A BLD trail caught their attention, but one of them suggested it could belong to an animal. Another tracker noted that the BLD was dried and likely 3 days old, and they discovered strands of green hair. They decided to inform the Yagis. Following the BLD trail deeper into the woods, the search party stumbled upon a gruesome scene of dried BLD and bones. To their horror, they found Izuku's clothes near a cave entrance. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and 𝗧𝗵𝗄 cried out in despair, and just then, a massive bear charged at them, the guardian of the cave. In a fit of rage, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 lunged at the bear, delivering a powerful punch that sent it crashing into a tree. He then seized the bear by the neck, attempting to choke it into 𝗬𝗵𝗲. The bear struggled, but 𝗬𝗄 used her quirk to immobilize its limbs, ensuring it could not escape. Eventually, the bear's body went limp, and 𝗬𝗵𝗲 twisted its neck to confirm its demise. 𝗬𝗄 clutched Izuku's clothes, weeping alongside Yagi and Izumi, while guilt washed over the others for their past actions. They began making arrangements for Izuku's funeral. Meanwhile, Izuku was finishing his last set of sit-ups when he noticed the girls approaching, their cheeks flushed at the sight of him. He inquired about how things had gone, and they simply watched him in silence. He urged them to focus, snapping them out of their trance. Ochako apologized as they regained their composure, and Izuku put on a black shirt. He asked if the plan had worked, and Toga confirmed that it had. They were preparing for his funeral as they spoke. Izuku expressed gratitude for their help, acknowledging that their efforts had made the plan successful. Tsuyu marveled at how much stronger he had become in just 3 days, wondering if it was due to Sauron's power. Izuku explained that with proper nutrition and intense exercise, his strength was indeed growing. When Ochako asked what he would do next, Izuku revealed his intention to test his newfound power against a worthy opponent in a perfect location. He teased that they would have to wait until night to see, and they agreed to be patient. Izuku closed his eyes and focused, causing the ring to glow as Sauron's mace appeared in his right hand. He lightly swung it to the side, generating a powerful gust of wind that pushed the girl back slightly. Apologizing, he placed the mace on the ground. Melissa expressed her amazement, noting how a simple swing could create such force and speculating on what it could do if he truly unleashed its power. Toga eagerly asked if she could wield it, but Mei quickly chimed in, wanting a turn as well. The others sweat dropped at their enthusiasm. Izuku suggested they wait, not wanting either of them to accidentally destroy the cave or surrounding area. Changing the subject, Izuku led them to a roasted deer he had caught earlier, and as they ate, they discussed their plans. He noted that Ochako, Tsuyu, and Mei were entering the hero course, while Toga would join the Adventure Guild, and Melissa planned to study dwarven technology in the capital. Melissa shared exciting news about the dwarves creating something new, a creature formed from lifeless substances like dust or earth, brought to life for various purposes, which they called golems. Izuku expressed concern about the potential threat, but Melissa reassured him that it would take time for the dwarves to create one, so there was no immediate danger. Feeling it was time to move on, Izuku led the group deeper into the woods until they reached a swampy marsh. There, they spotted 2 creatures emerging from the murky waters, a lizard man in full armor wielding a massive battle axe and a giant snapping turtle brandishing what appeared to be an executioner's axe. Izuku smiled, sensing the challenge ahead, and thought it would be a good warm-up. The 2 creatures roared at each other and charged, weapons raised. The lizard man swung his axe, aiming to split the snapping turtle in 2, but the turtle blocked the attack and pushed the lizard man back before swinging its axe. The lizard man ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow. As the battle unfolded, the others watched in awe until Toga recognized the creatures. She identified the lizard man as a king and the turtle as a snapping king, both classified as SSS rank monsters. Mei questioned their danger, and Toga explained they were fighting over territory, with the Snapping King able to imbue his weapon with fire magic while the Lizard King wielded earth magic. Toga then noticed Izuku moving closer to the fight, stretching as he approached. Izuku casually remarked on the lovely night for a stroll, causing both kings to pause and turn their attention to him. As they charged, Izuku manifested Sauron's gauntlets, stopping their attacks and holding both axes in each hand. He encouraged them to give it their best shot, pushing them back slightly. Provoked, the kings attacked again, with the Lizardman King summoning earth spikes while the Snapping King charged. Izuku dodged the spikes and ducked under the Snapping King's axe, then seized the Lizardman King's axe and used the Snapping King's momentum to get closer. Ochako wondered why the creatures were fighting together, and Tsuyu explained that even fierce rivals would unite against an intruder. Realizing Izuku had interrupted their battle, they turned their focus on him. Izuku tossed the Lizardman King's axe toward the Snapping King, causing both to stumble. As they regained their footing, Izuku taunted them, expressing his boredom. The two kings roared in frustration, their cries echoing through the swamp. Izuku acknowledged their anger, but he was ready for the challenge. Toga warned Izuku to retreat, revealing that the kings could summon their kin to battle. As Izuku heard movement in the water, he saw multiple lizard men and snapping knights emerging alongside their leaders. Toga urged him to run, but the determination in Izuku's eyes made it clear he was not backing down. Thrilled by the prospect of battle, he threw the axe back to the Lizardman King, igniting the conflict. Both kings pointed their weapons at Izuku, and their soldiers roared before charging. Izuku met their advance with enthusiasm. One lizardman lunged at him, sword aimed at his head, but Izuku sidestepped, grabbed the lizardman's sword, and used him as a shield as a spear pierced through the lizardman's stomach. Releasing his grip, Izuku swiftly dispatched a snapping knight attacking from the side, green BLD erupting as he struck. Seizing a sword from the fallen knight, he deflected an incoming attack and slashed at another lizardman, who screeched in pain. The battle had only just begun. Izuku fought fiercely, cutting down any enemy that crossed his path. Some opponents attempted to attack from a distance with magic, but their efforts were in vain. With a pointed gesture, black spears shot forth, piercing through armor and striking down foes. One spear struck a lizardman's head, and Izuku pressed on, attempting to stab a snapping knight, only for its head to retract into its shell. Frustrated, he reached inside the shell and forcefully removed the knight's head. The swamp was strewn with the fallen bodies of lizardmen and knights, remnants of the fierce battle. Izuku was splattered with their BLD, which dripped to the ground as he turned to see only the Snapping and Lizardman Kings remaining. He discarded his BLD-soaked swords, picked up a scythe from a fallen lizardman, and prepared for the final confrontation. As the two kings circled him, Izuku challenged them, ready for their attack. One king lunged from behind while the other approached from the front. Izuku spun with the scythe, keeping them at bay, but the Snapping King's charge caught him off guard, and the shell became lodged, halting his momentum. The Lizardman King seized the opportunity, swinging his axe down alongside the Snapping Kings. Izuku released the scythe just in time to block their strikes, the force of their combined strength pushing him back slightly. Both kings infused their weapons with magic, hoping to gain an advantage, but Izuku's gauntlets absorbed the impact. Suddenly, a lizardman leaped from the water, rushing at him. The Lizardman King coiled its tail around Izuku's waist, restricting his movement as the attacker swung a blade toward his face. The onlookers watched in disbelief as Izuku caught the blade with his teeth. The lizardman struggled to reclaim its sword, but Izuku's grip was unyielding. The blade cracked under the pressure, and Izuku spat out a shard that struck the lizardman, ending its threat. With determination, Izuku gripped the axes of both kings and lifted them into the air, spinning rapidly. The kings clung to their weapons, but the BLD covering their bodies caused them to lose their grip, sending them flying. Izuku halted the spin and discarded the weapons, noticing the Lizardman King's tail still wrapped around him. He seized it and threw it aside. Resolute, Izuku declared that it was time to end the battle. He retrieved the scythe and approached the two kings, who hesitated, weaponless. In a sudden burst of speed, he lunged forward, swinging the scythe and decapitating the Lizardman King. The snapping king narrowly avoided the same fate by retracting its head just in time. Izuku attempted to strike again but struggled to maintain his grip due to the BLD covering him, only managing to crack part of the snapping king's shell. The snapping king retaliated, lunging at Izuku, who caught it and slammed it to the ground. He climbed atop the snapping king, immobilizing it, and raised his fist high before bringing it down with force, shattering the shell. As he withdrew his hand, he held the king's still beating heart, which he crushed, leaving the snapping king lifeless on the ground. Izuku dropped the remnants of the heart and approached the watching girls. He remarked on the excitement of the battle, and Ochako inquired about the corpses. Izuku expressed uncertainty about their fate, prompting Toga to explain that the parts could be valuable, with the snapping knight's shell usable for armor and the lizard men for various purposes. Izuku encouraged them to take the parts, stating that he only wanted the king's remains. As they discussed their plans, Ochako suggested that since this would be their last time together for a while, they should create a memorable night. Izuku noticed the blushes on their faces, understanding their intentions, and felt a thrill of anticipation as they returned to the cave. While washing the BLD from his body, his heart raced at the thought of what was to come. Izuku took deep breaths, feeling the towel wrapped around the lower half of his body. He entered his room and was taken aback to find the girls had changed into a more relaxed state. His heart raced as he realized the situation, and his rational thoughts began to fade. All he could focus on was his feelings for Ochako, who was closest to him. He leaned in and shared a gentle kiss with her. Ochako was initially surprised by his boldness, but she quickly reciprocated, wrapping her arms around his neck to deepen the kiss. Izuku felt a rush of emotions as he explored the moment, his hands moving in a tender manner. They soon pulled apart to catch their breath. Toga, eager to join in, playfully reminded them not to forget about her. She moved closer to Izuku, sharing a kiss that added to the excitement in the room. The atmosphere shifted as they all found themselves drawn to each other, creating a playful and energetic vibe. Mei and Melissa exchanged glances, their eyes lighting up with a shared idea. They playfully surrounded Izuku, adding to the fun and laughter that filled the space. Tsuyu joined in, adding her own playful antics, which only heightened the atmosphere. Ochako, with a mischievous grin, decided to tease Toga, causing surprised gasps and laughter. The playful banter continued, with everyone enjoying the lightheartedness of the moment. As the excitement built, the girls playfully engaged with each other, creating a scene filled with laughter and joy. Izuku watched, feeling a mix of emotions as he enjoyed the camaraderie and connection they all shared. With a playful challenge, he asked who would take the lead next, and Toga eagerly lunged at him, her enthusiasm infectious. The atmosphere was charged with energy and laughter, as they all embraced the fun of the moment together. Toga felt an overwhelming sense of joy as she experienced a moment of connection with Izuku. It was a feeling she had never encountered before, filling her with happiness. After their NTMT moment, Izuku gently helped Toga to a comfortable position where she could relax. As he turned around, he caught sight of Tsuyu enjoying a snack, adding a lighthearted touch to the atmosphere. Izuku and Mei shared a tender moment, their faces close as they gazed into each other's eyes. As they pulled away, Mei felt a rush of emotions, her heart racing. She expressed her excitement, but Izuku, with a playful smirk, teased her by holding back, leaving her wanting more. Mei's frustration grew as she questioned his sudden pause, yearning for the connection they had just shared. Izuku, enjoying the moment, continued to playfully engage with her, making her feel a mix of anticipation and longing. Mei whispered her wishes, her cheeks flushed with a blend of shyness and eagerness, as the atmosphere thickened with unspoken feelings. Izuku playfully teased Mei, claiming he couldn't hear her. Mei, feeling bold, exclaimed something surprising that caught the attention of those around them. Izuku leaned in and kissed her softly on the lips before lifting her and carrying her to the bed. He assured her that he would fulfill her wishes, kissing her again as they shared a moment of connection. Mei felt a rush of excitement, lost in the bliss of the moment, her emotions overwhelming her as they continued to explore their feelings for each other. Izuku, wanting to bring her even more joy, focused on making her feel cherished and adored, heightening the intensity of their shared experience. Izuku spun Mei around, her back facing him, and he couldn't help but admire her as she moved. Each motion made her body sway, and he felt a rush of excitement. He playfully tapped her, eliciting a mix of reactions from her. He asked her how she felt about their connection, but all he could hear were her enthusiastic responses. He warned her that he might slow down if she didn't answer, and she eagerly declared her loyalty to him. With a smirk, he acknowledged her response and prepared to lift her, her eyes sparkling with delight. Afterward, he gently placed Mei down, noticing that she had succumbed to the overwhelming sensations. He glanced over to see Ochako on the floor, breathing heavily, and he noticed Melissa and Tsuyu looking eager for their turn. Melissa reassured him that Ochako was still ready, and now it was their moment to join in the fun. Both approached Izuku with determination in their eyes. They gently pushed him down onto the bed. Tsuyu, unable to resist her instincts any longer, leaned in closer, her excitement evident as she engaged with him, causing him to react with pleasure. He noticed how skilled she was, and it added to his enjoyment. Meanwhile, Melissa positioned herself above Izuku's mouth, playfully reminding him not to forget about her. She began to engage with Tsuyu, creating a moment filled with shared excitement. Tsuyu then playfully pressed herself against Izuku, eager to feel closer to him. As the atmosphere intensified, they all became lost in the moment, their energy building until they reached a peak of shared exhilaration. Izuku sat up, but he was quickly pushed back onto the bed. He noticed Tsuyu's eager expression as she urged him to be with her. With a swift motion, he turned her around, finding himself in a DMNT position. He was determined to fulfill her wishes, and as he moved closer, he could sense her excitement. Tsuyu's enthusiasm was palpable, and Izuku felt her anticipation grow as he increased his pace. She pulled him closer, and he understood her unspoken desires. As he continued to engage with her, he could see the intensity in her eyes, reflecting her fervent wishes. The atmosphere was charged with energy as they both surrendered to the moment, each feeling the thrill of their connection. Tsuyu expressed her longing for him to deepen their bond, and Izuku was fully committed to making their experience unforgettable. Warm liquid filled his mouth as he paused, noticing that Tsuyu was lactating. It reminded him that female beastmen had unique ways of ensuring their partners would be with them. He thought about how he would make sure she felt cherished. As he continued to engage with her, the sounds of Tsuyu's joyful expressions filled the air, her mind lost in the moment. That was when Melissa decided to join in, and he noticed her eagerness. He shifted slightly, allowing Melissa to also share in the experience. As the minutes passed, both Izuku and Tsuyu felt a surge of excitement building between them. Tsuyu wrapped her legs around Izuku's waist, fully immersed in the moment. The atmosphere was charged with energy as they reached a peak of exhilaration together. Once the intensity subsided, they shared a sense of connection and warmth. Izuku followed her lead, moving behind her with determination. He gently lifted her chin, sharing a tender kiss that ignited a spark between them. As he embraced her, he focused on making her feel cherished, easing any discomfort she might have felt. With a rhythmic motion, he engaged with her, creating a moment that made her forget any lingering worries. The connection between them deepened, as they both lost themselves in the intensity of the moment. Izuku paused, pulling back from the moment, as he took hold of Melissa's wrist and began to move with increased urgency, and she found herself enjoying every second of it. He appreciated the way her movements caused her figure to sway, and he felt a rush of excitement building within him. As he approached a peak of exhilaration, so did Melissa, and he experienced a wave of satisfaction as they both surrendered to the moment. Afterward, Izuku gently placed Melissa on the bed and turned his attention to Ochako, who was still on the ground, recovering from the earlier encounter with Tsuyu and Melissa. Ochako attempted to speak, expressing her hesitation, but Izuku lifted her effortlessly, drawing her closer and making her face him. He felt a sense of urgency and confidence as he encouraged her, sensing her readiness despite her initial reluctance. Izuku found himself captivated by the sound of Ochako's laughter, which resonated like an appealing melody. The warmth of their connection enveloped him, and he felt a surge of affection as he gently embraced her. As they shared this NTMT moment, he could sense the joy radiating from her, and it filled him with determination. He knew that their bond was growing stronger, and he was committed to protecting her and ensuring their futures intertwined. With a sense of purpose, he promised himself that he would always be there for her, just as he had been for others in his life. Izuku looked at Ochako, concerned as he noticed her faintness. He gently moved her and the other girls onto the bed, feeling a sense of possession over them. He extinguished the lantern that illuminated the room and settled down among the girls he cherished. As dawn broke, Izuku awoke, stretching and yawning. He noticed the girls were still asleep and quietly slipped out of bed, using shadows to avoid waking them. He began preparing breakfast with the remaining deer meat from the previous day. The enticing aroma soon roused the girls. Izuku greeted them with a cheerful morning as they slowly got up, their legs a bit unsteady from the previous night's activities. He used his magic to strengthen them, allowing them to walk normally. As they enjoyed their breakfast, Toga remarked that it would be a while before they saw each other again. Izuku reassured them that the separation wouldn't last long. Mei inquired about the remains of the two kings, and Izuku expressed his longing to experiment with his necromancy abilities. They stepped outside the cave, where Izuku gathered the remains of the lizard man and snapping king. He extended his hands and began to chant an incantation in an ancient language. To their astonishment, the spirits of the lizard man and snapping turtle emerged, bowing before him. Tsuyu noted that it seemed to have worked, and Izuku, feeling excited, brought the spirits closer together. He declared his intention to create a powerful ally, merging the spirits and using his magic to forge armor. He named this new entity Uten, who pledged loyalty to Izuku. Izuku promised to provide Uten with better weapons in the future and placed the axes of the lizard man and snapping king before him. Uten accepted them, ready for service. Ochako expressed her surprise at Izuku's newfound ability, to which he explained that it was a theory he had developed, and he was pleased it had succeeded. As time passed, Izuku gathered supplies for his journey to the mountains, with the girls assisting him in packing. Each of them shared a kiss with him before Melissa handed him a map, marking locations of interest. Mei asked how he would keep in touch, and Izuku smiled, revealing that they would hear his voice in their minds, thanks to a bit of his magic within them. The girls were amazed, and when they tested their ability to communicate back, it worked perfectly. Izuku felt a sense of accomplishment as he prepared to leave. He turned to the mountains, with Uten by his side, while the girls cheered him on. Once he was out of sight, a sense of sadness washed over them. Melissa reminded everyone that they had a mission to complete, and they agreed to return to the village to report the fallen lizard man and snapping king, ensuring they would receive the reward for their efforts. As they departed, a teenager with black hair and brown eyes, dressed in fishing attire, overheard their conversation. He realized he needed to inform the guards about what had transpired. However, as he turned around, he was startled to find the girls behind him. Tsuyu had sensed his presence, and Toga approached him menacingly. The boy, overwhelmed with fear, stammered that he wouldn't tell anyone about what he had seen. Toga, with a swift motion, drew her dagger, ensuring that no one would hear the secrets of the dead. For the sake of Izuku's quest for vengeance, Ochako declared that no one would stand in his way, and those who did would face dire consequences as they disposed of the remnants of their previous encounter. Meanwhile, Izuku pressed onward toward the mountains, using the shadows cast by the trees to hasten his journey alongside Uten. He thought to himself that soon, revenge would be his. As he navigated through the forest, Izuku halted at a specific spot. Uten inquired about their paws, noting they were nearing the forest's edge. Izuku explained that they were approaching an area devoid of shadows, and he needed supplies, so it was wise to gather some pack mules for their journey. Thanks to Melissa, he knew exactly where to find them. As they continued their trek, stumbled upon what Izuku sought. Uten hesitated, recognizing the figures before them. Izuku confirmed that the stone trolls would serve as their pack mules. With determination, he prepared to awaken them from their stony slumber. Uten expressed doubt, but Izuku's gaze silenced him, and he quickly reassured his MSTR of his faith in his abilities. Izuku focused on a spell that could manipulate time for inanimate objects, allowing him to reverse the troll's transformation. As the trolls regained consciousness, one of them spoke, recalling the moment they were turned to stone. Izuku seized the opportunity, revealing himself as their liberator and demanding their gratitude. Initially met with skepticism, the trolls questioned why they should comply. One of them suggested cooking Izuku instead, but 𝗬𝗏 swiftly intervened, incapacitating the trolls with precision. As Izuku asserted his power, the trolls felt a wave of fear wash over them, understanding that their fate rested in his hands. Izuku explained that he required pack mules, and the trolls, recognizing his strength, agreed to serve him. He released them from their previous state, assuring them that they would no longer need to fear the sunlight. As they ventured forth, the trolls were hesitant, but 𝗬𝗏 encouraged one to step into the light, revealing that they were no longer stone. As they continued their journey, one of the trolls inquired about their destination. Izuku informed them they were heading to the mountains, keeping the details to himself. Following the route Melissa had marked on the map, they traversed an open field as the sun began to set. Izuku used his magic to shape the earth, creating a stone hut for their campsite. Once settled, Izuku requested his bag from one of the trolls, who complied. He began to eat the deer stew he had prepared earlier. The trolls, unsure of their next move, were granted permission to find their own food. One of them expressed gratitude before they departed, and Izuku instructed them to address him as Mstr from that point forward. As night fell, a sense of tranquility enveloped the camp until Izuku's peace was shattered by distant voices pleading for help. Annoyed by the interruption, he learned that the trolls had returned with a group of humans. Izuku questioned their intrusion, and the trolls bowed in apology. One of the humans, desperate for freedom, offered riches in exchange for their release. Izuku recognized the arrogance of the wealthy by their attire and recalled the disdain he had felt toward them in his youth. Hatred simmered within him as he considered their offers, remembering the times he had been belittled by those of privilege. Izuku inquired about the others accompanying the man. The man dismissed them, claiming they were of no importance and that he could easily replace them, even his wife and child. This response shocked those around him. Izuku then changed his mind, expressing a longing to hear the man squeal, while ordering the others to be granted a swift end. The crowd erupted in screams, pleading for their lives. One of the trolls acknowledged Izuku's command, and he conjured a cage to prevent any escape. He then asked if they had a carriage, to which the troll confirmed they did, along with a wagon filled with supplies. Izuku instructed the troll to bring the carriage to him, eager to see what it contained. Upon its arrival, he examined the valuables and noticed some butchering tools, which made him smile. He ordered the trolls to use the carriages to ignite fires, along with the remaining supplies, while he manipulated the earth to create spikes near the carriages. As the flames roared, he suggested using the tools to prepare kebabs. The trolls began their work, and Izuku noticed one of the trolls approach a child. A woman, presumably the child's mother, begged for mercy, insisting her child was innocent. Izuku coldly replied that the child would likely grow up to be just like the rest of them, whom he deemed as parasites. As the child cried out for his mother, the troll carried out Izuku's orders, causing the mother to scream in horror. Izuku walked away, unfazed by the chaos, as another troll seized the woman and repeated the gruesome act. He turned his attention to the men who had attempted to negotiate with him earlier, ready to hear their cries. Izuku made large slabs for them to lie on, circling them as he expressed his disdain for the wealthy, who he believed were corrupt and out of touch with true suffering. He raged against their privilege, having everything handed to them without understanding the struggles of life. 𝗬𝗏, one of the trolls, brought forth the butchering tools. Izuku picked up a bone saw, relishing the thought of their screams. He had experience in such matters and intended to prolong their suffering. He approached the nearest man and began to saw off his leg, the man screaming as Izuku expertly navigated around the bone, ensuring he remained alive. Once finished, he ordered 𝗬𝗏 to bring the mold, pouring molten metal onto the man's wounds, inflicting excruciating pain. He then cut away more flesh, discarding it into the fire for the trolls to cook. Satisfied with his work, he moved on to the next limbs, leaving the man begging for mercy. With one man subdued, Izuku turned to the other, who attempted to escape his fate. He stopped him, declaring he had something special in store. Using a shucking knife, he began to remove the man's eyes, ears, and other features, leaving him disfigured. He crafted metal replacements, inserting them into the man's sockets while he screamed in agony. After completing his grim task, Izuku admired his handiwork, feeling a sense of satisfaction. He instructed the trolls to handle the rest while he retired to a rock hut, using magic to conceal their actions. As the trolls feasted on the cooked remains, Izuku wondered what the next day would bring before drifting off to sleep, ensuring he couldn't smell the burnt flesh. The morning arrived, and Izuku awoke, dispelling his magic to reveal the area. He stretched and yawned, noticing Uten standing guard while the trolls rested nearby, exhausted from their previous night's work. Izuku approached his bag, retrieving some dried deer meat to eat. He then took out a kettle, filled it with water, and set it on the fire to brew coffee. As the kettle began to whistle, he removed it from the heat, poured himself a cup, and savored the warm drink. He felt a sense of contentment wash over him as he finished his coffee and tidied up his belongings. Noticing the trolls still asleep, Izuku urged them to wake up, releasing a hint of his aura. The trolls quickly sprang to their feet. Satisfied, Izuku instructed them to get moving, eager to reach the village before noon. Along the way, he successfully hunted a deer and a boar, making the trolls carry the spoils while warning them not to touch his catch. Time passed, and soon they stood atop a cliff, gazing down at the town below. One of the trolls asked if they were going to destroy or take over the town. Izuku replied that he would assess whether the townspeople were worthy of being taken over and instructed the trolls to wait while he descended the cliff, landing gracefully. As he entered the town, Izuku used a spell to change his eye color to green, allowing him to observe the bustling crowd. He gathered the items he needed and employed magic to influence the townspeople's minds, acquiring everything without cost. Afterward, he explored the town, contemplating its potential as a trap for unsuspecting visitors. However, his attention was soon drawn to a distressing scene. He spotted 3 boys bullying a little girl, who wore torn clothes and relied on a cane. One of the boys kicked the cane away, while another pulled her hair, taunting her mercilessly. Izuku's anger flared, and he cast an illusion to ensure no one would intervene. He then used dark magic to shield the girl from the boys, who were taken aback as they noticed Izuku approaching with a determined expression. The fear in their eyes was palpable as he confronted them, questioning why they felt brave enough to torment the girl but cowered before him. As the boys attempted to flee, Izuku swiftly caught one by the neck, demonstrating his power. The others watched in horror as he made it clear that their actions would not go unpunished. They begged for mercy, trembling as they realized the gravity of their situation. Izuku approached them, his voice cold as he assured them that their families would soon join them. He left the leader for last, who was now desperately trying to crawl away. Izuku expressed his disdain for those who bullied the weak and defenseless, using his powers to bind the boy in place. He declared that he was doing the world a favor by eliminating such filth, and as he prepared to deliver the final blow, he urged the boy to reflect on the suffering he had caused. The boy's pleas for forgiveness echoed in the air, but Izuku remained resolute in his decision. After ensuring the girl was safe, Izuku turned his attention to her, asking if she was all right. She opened her eyes, fear evident in her expression. He reassured her that he meant no harm and had dealt with the boys who had tormented her. Curious about her name, he learned she was called 𝗵𝗃𝗲. When he inquired about her parents, she expressed her fear of returning home, revealing that they would hurt her again. Izuku felt a surge of empathy for her, recognizing that she was alone in a harsh world, much like himself. He asked her if she would be happy if he could make all the people who had hurt her disappear. 𝗵𝗃𝗲, recalling her painful experiences, clutched his shirt tightly and pleaded with him to make them go away. Izuku embraced her, and in that moment, she felt warmth and safety for the first time. As she cried in his arms, Izuku reached out to his companion, Uten, giving orders to gather the trolls and eliminate everyone in the town, ensuring that no one would escape alive. With 𝗵𝗃𝗲 by his side, he used shadow magic to teleport them to a cliff overlooking the town, ready to carry out his plan. Izuku declared that he would fulfill 𝗵𝗃𝗲's wish, placing his hand gently over her eyes and using his power to restore her sight. He encouraged her to open her eyes slowly, and as she did, tears of joy streamed down her face for the first time in her life. Izuku then placed his hand on the ground, causing it to tremble as massive rock spikes rose from the earth, encircling the entire town. He lowered one of the spikes to allow Uten and the trolls to enter, a smile on his face as he anticipated the chaos to come. As bells rang and alarms blared, panic swept through the town. A voice echoed through the speakers, warning of the monster invasion and calling all adventurers and heroes to arms. A little girl clung to her brother, fear evident in her eyes as their father gathered his weapons and armor. He reassured them that he would protect them and instructed them to follow their mother to safety. Uten commanded the trolls to wreak havoc, ordering them to destroy everything in sight. Adventurers rallied to confront the trolls, but Uten, wielding his war axes, swiftly dispatched them with ease. He moved with terrifying speed, dodging attacks and countering with lethal precision, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. As he consumed the souls of the fallen, he grew even more powerful, relishing the destruction around him. The trolls continued their rampage, toppling houses and crushing those who remained hidden inside. Despite the heroes' efforts to fend them off with arrows and projectiles, their attempts proved futile. One troll, growing frustrated, hurled debris at the attackers, causing injuries and chaos among them. Seizing the opportunity, the trolls captured the survivors, their hunger insatiable. In the midst of the destruction, Uten sensed the last adventurer attempting to escape. The adventurer bravely threw an object at Uten, which exploded in a blinding flash, momentarily staggering him. Seizing the moment, the adventurer charged and struck Uten, declaring his vengeance for the lives lost. However, Uten quickly retaliated, asserting his 𝗵𝗃 and invading the adventurer's mind to uncover hidden survivors. Uten discovered that a few had taken refuge in a shelter beneath the guild. As he approached, the ground shook, and the doors burst open, revealing terrified faces. Uten taunted them, tossing the fallen adventurer's body towards them, eliciting cries of despair. He attempted to advance, but a barrier halted him. Undeterred, he unleashed his axes, demolishing the guild and causing debris to rain down, crushing those trapped inside. Meanwhile, Izuku and 𝗏𝗏 observed the devastation from a distance. Izuku expressed that it was time to move on, checking in on 𝗏𝗏, who hugged him tightly, tears of gratitude in her eyes. She thanked him repeatedly, overwhelmed with joy at the thought of being safe from the monsters. Izuku comforted her, promising that no one would ever harm her again as they made their way toward the mountain. In another part of the realm, soldiers and mages galloped through the plains, racing toward a village. One soldier inquired if they were headed in the right direction, to which the captain confirmed, hoping they weren't too late. Upon reaching the cliff's edge, they were met with a scene of utter destruction, a grim sight that filled them with dread. The captain urged his team to see if there were any survivors as they made their way toward the village. As the soldiers passed through, they were met with the sight of lifeless bodies scattered on the ground, flies buzzing around them. One soldier questioned what had transpired, and the captain ordered one group to search through the rubble while another gathered the bodies. Night fell, and the bodies were now shrouded in darkness. The captain clenched his fist in anger, pondering the tragedy that had unfolded. A knight called out to the captain, having discovered a survivor. Rushing over, they found a teenage boy trapped beneath the debris. The knights freed him, and the mages quickly employed their healing magic. The captain inquired about the boy's injuries, and a mage reported that he had a broken left arm and leg, several cracked ribs, and damage to some organs, marveling at the fact that he was still alive. Another mage detected 2 more survivors, prompting the soldiers to hastily remove the rubble while the mages used their magic to lift the larger pieces. As they cleared the last of the debris, they were horrified to find those who had sought shelter. They noticed movement and discovered a boy and girl, saved by their mother who had shielded them with her own body. The mages immediately began to treat the children. One soldier asked the captain what their next steps should be. The captain decided they would give the deceased a proper farewell and take the 3 survivors back with them, hoping they could shed light on the events that had transpired. The soldiers gathered every body they could find and placed them in a large pile, where the mages then set the remains ablaze. A soldier inquired whether they should camp for the night or return to the outpost. The captain determined they would stay, as the injured were not fit to be moved. He lamented the destruction of their teleportation device, instructing some soldiers to gather firewood while others searched for any usable supplies. At that moment, a mage approached the captain with good news. The survivors had regained consciousness. The captain expressed his relief and requested to see the survivor. Entering a tent, they found the teenage boy, who looked up at the captain with curiosity. The boy explained that the day had begun like any other until spikes erupted from the earth, surrounding the village. The captain questioned the boy's account, noting that there were no visible signs of such spikes upon their arrival. A soldier interjected, mentioning that the mages sensed faint traces of magic around the village, initially attributing it to the attacking monster. The captain encouraged the boy to continue. The boy recounted how the village was besieged by 4 monsters, 3 rock trolls and a 4th creature cloaked in black, wielding 2 war axes. Many heroes and adventurers had fought bravely against them but were ultimately overwhelmed. He had tried to hide, but the trolls had destroyed everything in their path. The captain thanked the boy for sharing his story and advised him to rest. After exiting the tent, a soldier asked the captain for his thoughts on the situation. The captain admitted he was uncertain about the implications of rock trolls appearing in daylight and the mysterious creature in black. He requested a communication device to contact headquarters for further insight. Unbeknownst to the captain, this village would not be the last to face such devastation. Meanwhile, Izuku and his companions continued their journey toward the mountain. Uten informed them they were nearly there as they paused at a hill, gazing at the mountain in the distance. Izuku expressed eagerness to see if the orcs were worth the trip, with 𝗏𝗏 perched on his shoulders, playfully wrapping her hands around his head. They hastened toward the mountain, noting the absence of people around. Upon reaching their destination, Izuku placed his hand on the mountain, searching for the orcs' location. He discovered they were atop the mountain and noted the presence of valuable ore. With a smile, he used his magic to manipulate the mountain, creating a smooth path for their ascent. As they climbed, the air grew thinner and the temperature dropped. Soon, they arrived at the orcs' dwelling, the ruins of a once magnificent castle. Izuku remarked on the orcs' taste, considering it suitable for their needs. Just then, 4 orcs emerged before them. One of the orcs taunted that they had found some food for the evening. Izuku set 𝗏𝗏 down with Uten and approached the orcs, cracking his knuckles as he declared his intent to see if they were worthy of his rule. One of the orcs charged at him, demanding silence. Inside the castle, a larger orc, seated on a throne, boasted to his fellow orcs to eat and drink, celebrating their strength on the mountain. He commanded a female orc to bring him more ale, and as she placed a barrel beside him, he grabbed her hand, insisting she stay to keep him company. The female orc looked at him with disdain, aware that she had little choice in the matter. An orc's body suddenly fell from the sky, crashing into the table and shattering it. A powerful aura approached, and the orc demanded to know who dared to interrupt his feast as Izuku and his companions appeared before him. Izuku, unfazed, remarked that all he had done was strike the orc, leading to its demise. The orc, furious at being ignored, shouted at Izuku, who continued to regard him with indifference. Izuku inquired if the orc was the leader of the place, to which the orc responded with disdain, introducing himself as 𝗏𝗏, the conqueror and ruler of all the orc clans. Izuku boldly declared that he had come to take 𝗏𝗏's throne, prompting laughter from the other orcs. 𝗏𝗏 found the interruption amusing and, in a good mood, offered Izuku and his friends a chance to leave with their lives. However, one female orc, sensing the seriousness of the situation, remained quiet, aware of Izuku's strength. Growing tired of 𝗏𝗏's laughter, Izuku sighed, grabbed a mug of ale, and poured it over 𝗏𝗏's head, silencing the room. Dropping the mug, Izuku picked up the female orc beside 𝗏𝗏 and returned to his previous spot. He shared a brief moment with her, surprising her with a kiss that deepened as she responded to his advances. They broke apart, and Izuku smirked at 𝗏𝗏, now ready for a fight. 𝗏𝗏's rage intensified, and he charged at Izuku with his battle axe. Izuku swiftly moved the female orc out of harm's way, whispering to her as he prepared for the confrontation. As 𝗏𝗏 swung his axe, Izuku easily dodged the attack, evading each strike with grace. 𝗏 demanded to know why Izuku was not fighting back, to which Izuku replied that he would only engage under certain conditions. 𝗏 reluctantly accepted, and the other orcs watched the unfolding battle. Izuku noticed the female orcs accompanying 𝗏, fueling his determination to win. 𝗏 charged again, raising his axe high before bringing it down with force. Izuku, however, parried the blow effortlessly, countering with a punch to 𝗏's stomach. 𝗏 staggered back, clutching his midsection. Izuku taunted him, questioning if the great 𝗏 was truly injured by such a light hit. Enraged, 𝗏 swung his axe wildly, but Izuku remained calm, hands in his pockets. As 𝗏 grew increasingly furious, he yelled for Izuku to stop dodging and fight him. Izuku sidestepped and delivered a roundhouse kick to 𝗏's face, knocking out a few teeth, then struck his knee, causing 𝗏 to roar in pain. Seizing the moment, Izuku headbutted 𝗏, breaking his nose. 𝗏, now desperate, declared that he had enough of Izuku and began transforming, his body swelling and skin turning reddish. Izuku recognized 𝗏's berserker mode but remained unfazed. When 𝗏 swung his axe down, a powerful gust of wind erupted, yet Izuku stopped the axe with 2 fingers, remarking on the rudeness of interrupting someone while speaking. With a twist of his fingers, he snapped the blade. Izuku then declared 𝗏's end was near, moving his hand into 𝗏's neck, causing a spray of blood. He seized 𝗏's spine and removed his head, which fell to the ground. Addressing the other orcs, Izuku commanded them to submit and kneel before him. They complied, and he walked past them to take his place on 𝗏's throne, tossing 𝗏's head aside. Izuku then instructed Uten to protect 𝗏𝗃 in a separate room while the trolls stood guard outside. He entered what had been the Orc King's chamber, revealing the 4 females he had seen earlier. They bowed to him, greeting their new chief. Izuku asked for their names, and the orc he had met earlier stepped forward, introducing herself as 𝗏𝗃, with the others being Ora the Oni, Sasha the other orc, and Luca the werewolf. Izuku introduced himself to the group, feeling a mix of excitement and anticipation as he noticed them preparing for the evening. The atmosphere was charged with energy as the females expressed their eagerness to serve him. Izuku, feeling a rush of confidence, took a seat on the bed and inquired who would be first. The group exchanged glances and decided to draw sticks to determine the order, with Ora being chosen first, followed by Sasha, Luca, and 𝗏𝗃. Ora approached Izuku, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. She drew closer to him, and they shared a brief, tender kiss. As their lips met, Izuku felt a surge of warmth and connection. Ora leaned into him, and he could sense her excitement as they explored this new bond. The chemistry between them was palpable, and Izuku felt a thrill as they engaged in playful intimacy. As the moment unfolded, Izuku and Ora shared a dance of closeness, each movement filled with unspoken understanding and shared pleasure. The room was filled with a sense of camaraderie as the others watched, their anticipation building as they waited for their turn. The energy in the air was electric, and Izuku felt a deep sense of connection with Ora as they lost themselves in the moment, surrounded by the warmth of friendship and trust. Luca leaned in and shared a kiss with him, feeling the warmth of the moment. As they pulled away, a playful spark ignited in her eyes. She expressed her longing for him to take charge and help her escape from reality. With a determined look, he embraced his transformation into a werewolf, towering over her, and she felt a rush of excitement at the sight. Izuku felt a sense of closeness with Luca, sensing her excitement as they moved together. He quickened his pace, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. As he reached a peak of emotion, he felt a surge of connection, marking a significant bond between them. Luca experienced a wave of joy, fully immersed in the bliss of their shared experience. Izuku, after finishing his task, placed Luca with the others and returned to his normal state. He turned to 𝗏𝗃, who wasted no time in launching herself at him. They shared a passionate kiss, and in a swift motion, Izuku lifted her legs, pinning her against the wall. He embraced her with fervor, their connection deepening as she expressed her delight. 𝗏𝗃 felt a rush of excitement as Izuku guided her into a new position, pushing boundaries she had never explored before. She was surprised but intrigued by the sensations, adjusting to the experience as Izuku continued to lead her deeper into uncharted territory. He expressed his admiration for her, noting how tight she felt, and acknowledged her desires, shifting their focus as he moved back to a more familiar rhythm. As they both reached a peak of exhilaration, Rukta felt a warmth envelop her, leaving her breathless and exhausted. Izuku gently lifted her and placed her on the bed with the others, joining them in a peaceful slumber, his mind already racing with plans for the day ahead. Morning arrived, and Izuku stirred, carefully moving his new companions aside as he got out of bed. He stretched and began to dress, only to be halted by Luka, who playfully wrapped her arms around him, expressing her longing for more time together. Izuku, though tempted, reminded her of his responsibilities and instructed her to gather the others for a meeting in the dining hall. After sharing a brief kiss, he left the room to find 𝗏𝗏. Upon entering 𝗏𝗏's chamber, he discovered the rock troll sleeping. Izuku shook him awake, questioning why he was not on watch. The troll apologized, explaining that he had been waiting to establish shifts with the others, who had not yet arrived. Izuku decided that they would face consequences for their tardiness but still had use for them. He commanded the troll to wake everyone and gather them in the dining hall. Next, Izuku entered another room where he found Uten standing by her bed, ready to greet him. He inquired about her companion's rest, and Uten confirmed that she had slept well. Satisfied, Izuku instructed Uten to keep an eye on her friend while he made his way to the dining hall, where everyone was assembling. Standing before the throne with his companions by his side, Izuku addressed the gathered crowd. He explained that today was a day for them to instill fear and despair in their enemies, a day to reclaim their strength and show the world their true nature. The orcs responded with excitement, readying their weapons and armor as they prepared to follow his lead. As they set off, Izuku shared his plan with Sasha and Luka, assigning them specific locations to target while ensuring they would remain undetected. He then directed Rukta and Aura to their own designated spots, emphasizing the importance of their mission. Once everything was in place, he reminded them to follow his orders closely, warning of the consequences of disobedience. With the orcs primed for action, Izuku led them into the woods, where they caught the scent of humans nearby. One orc charged ahead, only to be swiftly reminded of the importance of following orders when Izuku intervened, demonstrating his power and authority. He then urged the orcs to proceed with their tasks, guiding them toward the village that had caused him so much pain. As they approached, a guard spotted Izuku and demanded identification. He simply replied with a chilling declaration, summoning a sphere of electricity and dark magic that enveloped the town. The guards, in a panic, fired their cannons at him, but he effortlessly deflected their projectiles, sending them crashing back into the walls and causing chaos among the defenders. The atmosphere was charged with tension as Izuku prepared to unleash his full potential, ready to confront the challenges ahead. Izuku pointed his mace toward the town and commanded an attack. The guards spotted orcs emerging from the forest, charging straight for them. The guards shouted for the bell to be rung, signaling the call to arms. The orcs surged through the town, and chaos erupted as the townspeople screamed in fear, fleeing in every direction. Despite their efforts, the orcs quickly caught up with them, causing devastation. Adventurers on the streets bravely charged at the orcs, while mages attempted to use their magic to assist the evacuation. Unfortunately, their spells had little effect, and many adventurers fell in the struggle. A child cried out for their father, witnessing a horrific scene as an orc attacked. A mother, clutching her child, urged them not to look back as they ran for safety. They found refuge in a bakery, hiding behind the counter. Suddenly, an orc burst through the door, and the mother covered her child's mouth as they heard its heavy footsteps searching the store. An adventurer charged at the orc with a spear, managing to strike a critical blow. The orc fell, but the mother soon saw Aura, a formidable figure, swing her axe with deadly precision, taking the adventurer's head clean off. The gruesome scene unfolded before her and her child, and in desperation, the mother begged for mercy as Aura simply turned away, leaving them vulnerable. Two more orcs appeared, and chaos ensued as they attacked the mother and child, separating them. The mother cried out in horror as the orcs overwhelmed them. Meanwhile, soldiers and adventurers fought valiantly against the orc horde, But their efforts were in vain as 𝗬𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏 led their forces with ruthless efficiency, easily dispatching anyone who stood in their way. The town was engulfed in chaos, with the sounds of battle echoing everywhere. To Izuku, it was a symphony of destruction, and he reveled in it as he walked through the streets, humming to the chaos around him. Reaching the town center, Izuku noticed the orcs attempting to breach an emergency shelter reinforced by dwarves, sensing mages inside casting protective spells. He commanded the orcs to drag the people out, and as the last person exited, he swung his mace, causing the shelter to collapse. Turning to the remaining townspeople, who huddled together in fear, Izuku expressed his twisted satisfaction at their despair. He relished the sight of their homes in ruins, mocking their inability to stand and fight. He contemplated their fate, deciding that death would be too quick. Instead, he wanted them to suffer as he had. Chains wrapped around the townspeople, separating men, women, and children. Izuku then ordered the orcs to take the women while the children were to be fed to the trolls, as the adults desperately tried to intervene. As the orcs began to carry out his orders, Izuku continued his path through the devastated town, stepping over the fallen. He spotted a small boy crawling on the ground and, without hesitation, placed his foot on the boy's head, applying pressure. The boy cried out in pain, and Izuku commanded his followers to search for any remaining survivors. Izuku made his way to a house that had somehow remained untouched. Inside, he found Mitsuki, the only other person besides Ochako and his companions who had shown him kindness. She rose from the couch and approached him, asking what his next move would be, having heard about the chaos that had unfolded. Izuku summoned an orb that displayed the invasion and everything that followed. With a smile on his face and his eyes glowing, he declared his intention to go to the capital and inform them that death was approaching. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 and his family arrived at the capital alongside the soldiers, who approached 𝗕𝗏𝗏 with relief. They expressed their gratitude for his presence and urged him to follow them, as others were waiting. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 instructed Izumi to join the others while he and her mother proceeded to the citadel. They followed the soldiers to a grand building at the center of the city. Upon entering the building, they made their way to a guarded elevator, which allowed them to ascend to the top floor. Once they arrived, they entered a room where representatives from each race of Middle-earth, along with a few others, were gathered around a large table. Gandalf welcomed everyone, and Legolas and Gimli nodded in agreement, representing their races alongside two new members, Diane, the Queen of the Giants, and Ryukyu, the Queen of the Dragonoids, as well as Nizu, the principal of the hero school and the king of both Gondor and Arnor. As everyone took their seats, the king expressed his gratitude for their attendance, emphasizing the importance of the matter at hand. He called for Sam to present his report. A hologram appeared on the screen as Sam stepped forward, revealing the destruction of a village and the slaughter of its people. He mentioned a sole survivor who claimed they were attacked by orcs, rock trolls, and a figure clad in black armor. The general's words ignited anger among the attendees. Inko questioned how this could happen, noting that rock trolls could not be active during the day and wondered why they hadn't used the teleportation circles. Sam explained that mages had discovered traces of dark magic surrounding the village, which raised concerns about the involvement of dark wizards. Gandalf clarified that no wizard could possess the power to revert rock trolls to their normal state or make them walk in daylight. Suddenly, the room was engulfed in darkness, and everyone prepared for action. Gandalf illuminated the space with his staff, and the power returned. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 suggested it was merely a power surge. Izuku, who had been silent until then, expressed his long-held dream of being in that very room. The king, taken aback, questioned his presence, prompting soldiers to enter and draw their weapons on him. In a swift motion, Izuku summoned shadows that ensnared the soldiers, rendering them powerless. He remarked on their rudeness and warned them not to act against him if they wished to see their king survive. Just then, 𝗬𝗏 appeared behind the king, placing his axe against the monarch's throat, forcing everyone to sit back down. Izuku then addressed the king, revealing himself as the harbinger of death and destruction. He turned to Sam, confirming that there was indeed a survivor. Izuku demanded to know why there had been a survivor when he had ordered the annihilation of the village. 𝗬𝗏, trembling with fear, apologized, explaining that he had collapsed the entire building on top of them. Izuku released a fraction of his aura, immobilizing those present, and stated that excuses would lead to punishment later. Gandalf questioned how Izuku could be present when they had destroyed the ring. Izuku revealed that Sauron had secretly forged another ring, which he had found and claimed for himself, granting him immense power. Nizu inquired about Izuku's earlier statement regarding his longing to be there. Izuku explained that he had aspired to be the greatest hero, but the world had denied him that opportunity. Diane questioned his motives, asking why he was pursuing this path. Izuku responded by revealing the suffering he had endured at the hands of others. He displayed a glimpse of the devastation he had caused to the town and the fate of the prisoners. 𝗕𝗵𝗄, filled with rage, wanted to retaliate but found himself unable to act. Izuku taunted him, reminding him of the pain he had inflicted on him and declaring his intent to bring death to them all. He warned them to gather their forces, for he would return, and they would be powerless to stop him. As the lights flickered and then went out, Izuku and 𝗬𝗏 vanished. Once they were gone, the remaining individuals regained their ability to move, breathing heavily in the aftermath. 𝐒𝐭𝐲 voiced her concern about their next steps. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 insisted they must rally their allies and launch an immediate attack to save the remaining villagers. Diane cautioned against this, pointing out that they had no idea where Izuku had gone and that any survivors would likely be in his grasp. Nizu turned to the king, seeking his thoughts. The king acknowledged the urgency of informing others that Sauron had returned and reluctantly suggested involving the students if necessary. Nizu agreed to prepare everything, but he questioned 𝗕𝗵𝗄 and 𝗒𝐭 about what Izuku meant regarding their role in his suffering. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 admitted he had no idea who Izuku was or what they had done to cause him pain. 𝗒𝐭, however, suddenly realized something, capturing everyone's attention. She hesitated before revealing her knowledge of Izuku and the events that had transpired, igniting a wave of rage among those present. They understood that they were responsible for the tragedy that had befallen the village. If they didn't need them, the king would have sent them both to the guillotine, but even that would be too easy. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 expressed disbelief, stating that it couldn't be Izuku since he had died a few weeks prior. Diane inquired if they had identified his body. 𝗒𝐭 explained that they had followed a trail to a bear cave, where they found his bloody clothes and hair at the entrance. Legolas noted that since the bear's digestive system had dissolved the bones, they could assume there were no remains. The king expressed shame that his people could commit such acts, and they all agreed. He declared that they must be prepared and would send word to the villages and towns to be on the lookout, vowing that they would not fall as they left to make preparations for the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, Izuku had returned, and the rock troll, along with the others, was in agony as Izuku used his magic to repeatedly break and repair their bones while gripping 𝗬𝗏 by the throat and extracting souls. He reminded them that he had ordered them to eliminate everyone in the town, but one had survived. One of the trolls, in pain, stammered that it wasn't their fault since they had brought the building down on the survivors. Izuku scolded them for their failure, suggesting that they should have set the building on fire first to ensure no one escaped, expressing his disappointment in their lack of intelligence. He broke their bones once more, leaving them to fall to the ground, and then tossed 𝗬𝗏 aside as a small creature formed. Izuku declared that they should serve as an example of what happens when they fail him. The others, filled with fear, bowed to him, promising not to fail again. Luca asked about the plan, noting that the king and others were preparing for battle, but Izuku stated they were not yet ready and needed more soldiers and generals. 𝗬𝗏 crawled out of the crater, acknowledging his failure and requesting to speak. Izuku considered him for a moment before allowing him to continue. 𝗬𝗏 revealed that, based on the memories of the souls, there was a Balrog trapped beneath the ice in Saragast. Izuku returned the souls to 𝗬𝗏, who thanked him. Sasha suggested they head to Saragast, but Izuku explained that it had been heavily fortified over the years and that he needed more soldiers to take it. 𝗏𝗃 mentioned goblins, noting that there were many of them, surprising Izuku when 𝗏𝗃 referred to him as Dad. Izuku agreed that it was a good idea, as their numbers could be useful, and noted that Melissa had marked the location of the old dwarf kingdom on his map. As they prepared to march there, Izuku warned that they were being searched for and decided to teleport them back to the mountain, instructing them to stay hidden while he and Uten made the goblins submit. Afterward, they would head to Saragost. Izuku also mentioned needing a new home base, as Mount Doom had been a failure and would soon be wiped out. Uten suggested a place on another continent called Westeros, a kingdom ruled by a king who sat on a throne made of swords. Izuku found this idea appealing, thinking it would be a good place to prepare for his invasion of Middle-earth, and they made their way to the Old Dwarf Kingdom. Izuku used his magic to disguise himself and Uten as they approached the Old Dwarf Kingdom. Uten offered to find transportation, but Izuku preferred to enjoy the view and noted that it wasn't far. He explained that he wanted to give the pitiful creatures time to savor their fleeting peace before he destroyed them. As they neared their destination, they encountered a group of knights blocking their path. The knight commander ordered them to turn around or face consequences. Izuku smiled, promising that there would indeed be consequences for them. He counted down, and as he reached 3, Uten summoned his axes, swiftly dispatching the knight. Izuku blocked their magic and advanced, while wraiths emerged from Uten's back to assist him. With each step Izuku took, a knight fell, their souls collected by the wraiths and returned to Uten. Upon reaching the entrance, which was sealed, Izuku summoned his mace and swung it to destroy the barrier, entering the Old Kingdom with Uten following closely behind. As they walked through the ancient halls, Izuku took in his surroundings. He instructed Uten to make a sound, which echoed throughout the hall. The ground trembled, and soon goblins began to swarm around them like insects. Uten took a protective stance, ready to attack, but Izuku placed a hand on his shoulder, signaling him to stand down. He stepped forward and commanded the goblins to kneel, instilling fear in them as they complied. He then ordered them to lead him to their king, and they parted to create a path for him to advance. They soon arrived at the ancient dwarven throne room, where Izuku spotted their king. The king was a large, unattractive creature, indulging in a piece of meat. He paused his eating upon seeing Izuku. The Goblin King remarked that Izuku must be special to come there unharmed or with a gift. Izuku acknowledged the special part but insisted they get straight to the point. From that day forward, the entire goblin race would serve him. A silence fell over the room, broken by the king's laughter, joined by the other goblins, as bits of meat fell from their mouths. The king mocked Izuku, dismissing him as a scrawny human. Izuku, undeterred, challenged the king's authority, taunting him about his weight and suggesting he was unfit to be a king. The goblins laughed at Izuku's remarks, which only fueled the king's anger. The Goblin King, now furious, agreed to fight Izuku to the death. Izuku, feeling somewhat sympathetic, offered to give the king a minute before attacking. As the king swung his mace, Izuku easily dodged, teasing him with each near miss. The Goblin King grew increasingly frustrated, swinging wildly as Izuku effortlessly evaded his attacks. When the time was up, Izuku charged at the king, delivering a swift kick that brought the king to his knees. Seizing the moment, he grabbed the king's weapon and struck him on the side of the head, causing a significant injury. The goblins watched in disbelief as Izuku demonstrated his strength. He then revealed his true power by manifesting his armor, compelling the goblins to kneel before him. Izuku proclaimed a new era for the goblins, promising them freedom to act as they pleased, and rallied them to join him in making Middle-earth tremble. The goblins responded with excitement, ready to follow him. He then cast a spell, summoning a circle beneath them, and teleported everyone back to the mountain. Upon arrival, the orcs quickly moved aside as the summoning circle dissipated. Rukta approached, expressing her relief at Izuku's return. He inquired about the others, and Rukta explained that they had gone to gather more orcs from other tribes. Izuku praised her efforts and shared a brief moment with her before addressing the assembled goblins. He recognized the strength of the force they had gathered and emphasized the need for a solid plan. Izuku stood before the goblins, instructing them to follow his orders without question, promising victory in return. To demonstrate his authority, he had the orcs bring forth a display meant to instill obedience. The goblins reacted eagerly, and Izuku felt satisfaction at their response. Afterward, Izuku took some time to rest. When Poka saw him, she rushed over, jumping into his arms and holding onto him tightly, showing how much she had missed him. He comforted her with gentle pats on the head. As he awaited the return of the orc tribes, he took the opportunity to train with 𝗏𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏, ensuring the orcs learned to respect her leadership. Izuku also dedicated time to help 𝗏𝗏 overcome her trauma, with Mitsuki assisting in teaching self-defense. Mitsuki moved through the castle confidently, and when a goblin attempted to approach her, Izuku swiftly dealt with the threat, establishing a clear warning to all that she was not to be trifled with. Soon, the sound of horns echoed in the distance, signaling the arrival of more orcs. Izuku stepped outside to greet his companions, pleased by the number of new orcs that had come with Aura, Luca, and Sasha, though he noted that Sasha had no orc with her. Without wasting time, he instructed them to follow him, leading them to a separate room where 𝗏𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏 awaited. They examined a map of 𝗧𝗏𝗏. Izuku inquired about how they managed to bring their allies there. Luca explained that they initially went to inform them of 𝗏𝗏's defeat, but their claims were met with disbelief, leading to a refusal to submit. 𝗏𝗏 asked what happened next, and Aura recounted how the chief had challenged them to a fight, which they accepted. She noted that the battle was rather dull as they easily defeated their opponents. 𝗏𝗏 remarked on their apparent weakness, questioning how 𝗏𝗏 had fallen so easily. Izuku expressed confusion, noting that they seemed to have grown stronger, but he couldn't understand how. Feeling parched, Izuku took a sip of water while his companions exchanged glances. Luca cheekily suggested that their newfound strength was due to their NTMT experiences with Izuku, causing him to spit out his drink in surprise. 𝗏𝗏 explained that upon waking, they felt a surge of power coursing through them. Izuku, eager to return to the topic at hand, listened as Luca introduced beast riders and Aura mentioned a tribe skilled in magic. 𝗏𝗏 then turned to Sasha, asking what she had brought. Sasha smiled and explained that she had intended to return with more orcs, but something had attacked and killed them. She had pursued the creature and succeeded in capturing 2 beasts, which they followed to sea. Sasha revealed the beasts, now in chains, and expressed that they would have been a challenge for her in the past. She asked Izuku if he believed he could handle them. With a smile, Izuku approached the creatures, placing his hand on their heads and using his aura to command them to submit. He then freed them from their chains, instructing them to stay put as he and his companions returned inside. With everyone gathered, Izuku outlined their plan. Their objective was the lake where the Balrog resided. He informed them that magical and regular cannons were positioned around the lake, which they needed to neutralize or seize control of. He also warned about the forts that could communicate with one another and call for reinforcements, emphasizing the enemy's familiarity with the terrain and the traps set along their path. 𝗏𝗏 acknowledged Izuku's caution, agreeing that charging in recklessly could have led to disaster. Izuku assured them that their approach would soon change as he detailed their next steps. Meanwhile, at Fort 𝗧𝗏𝗏, a guard shivered in the cold, trying to warm himself by a fire, which offered little comfort against the biting wind. Another guard remarked on the frigid conditions, questioning when their reinforcements would arrive. The first guard expressed concern about remaining vigilant in case Sauron made a move. Suddenly, they heard an unusual noise from the edge of the tower. Unsheathing their swords, they cautiously approached the source of the sound, only to discover it was just a bird. They dismissed their paranoia and turned back toward the fire, unaware that goblins were stealthily climbing the tower. The goblins swiftly attacked, knocking the guards to the ground and using their daggers to silence them. They extinguished the fire, signaling their allies to advance. Luca and Sasha mobilized their troops, while 𝗏𝗏 and Aura did the same at the other forts. 𝗏𝗏 led his forces toward the center, and Izuku, along with the orcs skilled in magic, surrounded the outer area. Izuku declared that it was time to begin, and the orcs began to chant, summoning a magical barrier that enveloped the mountaintop. A soldier at the fort, noticing the strange occurrences, attempted to contact the kingdom for reinforcements, but their efforts were in vain as they saw orcs and goblins advancing. The commander ordered his knights to prepare for battle, and they rushed to the entrance, weapons drawn. As arrows flew through the air, 𝗏𝗏 instructed the orcs to use their shields to block the incoming projectiles, some even using goblins as shields. As the door began to open, the captain urged calm among his men, but panic set in when they witnessed 2 knights being taken down by goblins. The orcs and goblins surged forward, overwhelming the knights. Despite their efforts to defend themselves, the goblins attacked relentlessly from all sides. Some of the female knights were captured and dragged away, their cries for help echoing in the chaos. In the midst of the turmoil, a guard's desperate question was cut short as he fell victim to Aura's swift strike. The captain, paralyzed by fear, attempted to flee but was seized by 𝗏𝗲, who scornfully remarked on his weakness before crushing his throat. As he fell to the ground, convulsing, 𝗏𝗲 and her allies moved to eliminate the remaining knights. Meanwhile, Izuku observed the unfolding chaos from atop the mountain, noting that their plan was proceeding well. He turned to the creatures, signaling that it was time for them to engage the knights operating the cannons with swift precision. The knights prepared for battle as they spotted the approaching creatures. Arrows shot from the archers, but they harmlessly bounced off the creatures' tough skin. The two beings split, each heading toward opposite sides of the lake. When they arrived, the knight stood firm, but the black creature swiftly used its tails to pierce through the knight's armor, tossing them aside with ease. It grabbed two knights and slammed them together, the sound of metal clashing echoing through the air. The other creature wreaked havoc as well, using its tail to strike a knight, sending him crashing into another, both falling lifelessly to the ground. The creature then seized another knight by the arms, pulling with immense force, leading to a terrible fate as it opened its mouth, drinking in the chaos around it. Izuku walked cautiously on the ice, the sounds of battle resonating throughout the mountains. He soon arrived at the location of the Balrog and summoned his mace, striking the ice repeatedly. Cracks began to form as he worked to break the sealing spell placed by the spirit of Karnan. With a final, powerful blow, he shattered the ice and transformed his body, growing larger as he grabbed the Balrog, placing it onto the ice. Deep within the dense woods, a spirit sensed the encroaching darkness threatening not only its land but others as well. A girl with vines for hair inquired about the disturbance. The spirit of Karnan warned her of the awakening of the Dark Lord and the impending doom. Understanding the urgency, the girl vanished with the wind. Izuku declared it was time to awaken the Balrog, using his fire ability to ignite its body. The flames seeped into the creature, and soon its eyes flickered to life as it stood, expanding its fiery wings and roaring into the sky, announcing its return. Izuku, curious about the creature's newfound freedom, was met with a fiery WHP launched in his direction. He dodged, remarking on the Balrog's lack of gratitude. The creature attempted to strike again, but Izuku leaped back just in time. Determined to teach the Balrog some manners, Izuku signaled his allies to pull back their forces, having successfully awakened the creature. As the Balrog charged at him, Izuku prepared for the encounter, launching himself forward as well. The ice cracked beneath them as the Balrog summoned a sword of fire, moving it toward Izuku. He countered with his mace, and their weapons collided, resulting in a massive explosion that sent the Balrog staggering back. Izuku transformed into his werewolf form, pursuing the creature and delivering a powerful blow to its chest, sending it crashing into the ice. Unrelenting, Izuku clawed at the Balrog's face, but the creature retaliated, grabbing him and throwing him with great force. Izuku soared through the air, crashing into a fort and breaking through the stone walls, causing debris to fall and trapping some knights within. Remarkably, he stood up as if nothing had happened, dusting himself off and declaring it was time to end the battle. He noticed dark clouds gathering above the Balrog, a sign of his own power. With a snap of his fingers, lightning shot down from the clouds, striking the Balrog and eliciting a roar of pain. Izuku sent more lightning its way, creating a small crater upon impact. He approached the crater, observing the electrical sparks dancing around the Balrog, and manipulated the earth to restrain it, forcing it to bow before him. Izuku presented the Balrog with two choices: to serve him and follow his commands or to continue fighting until it was ready to submit. He warned that failure to respond within 4 seconds would mean choosing the second option. The Balrog, surprisingly, agreed to obey, revealing a female voice. Izuku released her, then commanded her to eliminate the remaining knights, ensuring none would survive. Meanwhile, in the capital, the king and the heroes received troubling reports about the old dwarven kingdom. The king expressed frustration over the losses they were facing when a bright green light enveloped the throne room. As the light faded, a girl with vines for hair appeared, introducing herself as the Dryad 𝗔𝗲 and bringing urgent news. She revealed that someone had broken the seal on the Balrog in 𝗧𝗏𝗃, shocking everyone present. The king ordered immediate contact with 𝗧𝗏𝗃, but the magicians reported that communication was failing. Determined, the king instructed them to reach out to the knights in the area to gather information on the unfolding situation. Soon, the knights arrived at 𝗧𝗏𝗃 and activated a device that allowed the king and heroes to witness the devastation before them. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 was in ruins. It was then that they saw a scene they would never forget. Izuku sat atop a knight, surrounded by orcs and goblins. The creatures were tormenting the female knights, while others feasted on the fallen. They turned their gaze to the arriving knights, declaring that they were too late and had already claimed what they wanted. Behind Izuku loomed a Balrog, causing the knights to tremble in fear. Izuku bid them farewell, warning them that his gift was more formidable than it appeared. With a snap of his fingers, he vanished alongside the others, and the corpses began to stir and rise. The undead knights roared and charged at the living knights. The commanding knight urged his comrades to hold the line as they prepared their shields. Despite their efforts, the undead overwhelmed them, breaking through defenses and striking with their swords. The king and heroes watched in horror as the fallen knights rose again as undead. The king ordered an evacuation of nearby villages and cities, instructing that knights and adventurers be prepared to intercept the threat. He emphasized the need to send a warning to everyone. As he sat back down, a cold sweat dripped from his brow. He realized they must stop this menace or risk losing everything. 𝗔𝗲𝗃, still present in the throne room, stated her intention to report the incident to her 𝗕𝗏𝗃. The king acknowledged her request and asked to be informed of any updates regarding the threat. Meanwhile, at UA, Izuku's supporters held a secret meeting away from prying eyes. Ochako noted that Izuku's plan was progressing well now that the Balrog was under his control. Tsuyu revealed that she had learned about a prison for dark magic practitioners from a girl named Momo. Mei, who was tinkering with one of her inventions, inquired if Izuku was aware of it. Tsuyu replied that he was not yet informed, as she wanted to gather more information first. Toga offered to see what she could find out on her end. Just then, the bell rang, signaling the start of classes. Back with Izuku, he returned to the mountain and made his armor disappear. Luca stretched and expressed her enjoyment of the previous encounter. Izuku acknowledged that the undead knights would keep their enemies occupied for a while. He then decided to shrink the Balrog to prevent any destruction. Using his magic, he transformed her into a more human form. As she examined her new appearance, she mentioned that it would take some time to adjust but felt mostly the same. Izuku then entered the throne room, which had been arranged by Yuton, utilizing the soul of an interior designer. He took a seat on his makeshift throne as 𝗏𝗏 and the others approached. Luca asked what their next move would be, and Izuku replied that they would observe for now. He retrieved a crystal ball to monitor the human kingdom's situation, noting the knights' movements before they split into different directions. Suddenly he received a telepathic message from Tsuyu, who hoped she wasn't interrupting anything important. Izuku reassured her that it was a good time and asked what she had to share. Tsuyu revealed that she had information about a prison for dark wizards. Intrigued, Izuku encouraged her to continue. Tsuyu explained that these wizards had been caught practicing dark magic and experimenting on various races to gain power similar to his. Thanks to Toga, they had discovered the prison's location. Izuku expressed his gratitude, promising to reward both Tsuyu and Toga when they reunited. He inquired about the prison's location, and Tsuyu informed him that it was beneath 𝗬𝗏𝗻 Tower, guarded by elementals. Although she wished she could provide a map, they had been unable to obtain one. Izuku thanked her for the information and ended the communication. Yuton asked what news he had received, and Izuku instructed him to check if anyone was at 𝗬𝗏𝗻 Tower. Yuton nodded and began searching through the memories of the souls he had. Izuku contemplated who should accompany him, knowing he needed at least 2 allies. He decided that Yuton was essential and considered who would be the second. Just then, Yuton reported that no souls were present at 𝗬𝗏𝗻 Tower. Izuku instructed him to fetch Luca. Poka entered the room and inquired if Izuku was leaving again. He apologized, explaining that it was important, and promised to spend time with her afterward. Poka requested a pinky promise, which they exchanged before Izuku patted her head, earning a smile from her. Soon, Izuku, Yuton, and Luka reached the location of Saruman Tower, which loomed in the distance, surrounded by trees. Izuku declared that it was time to infiltrate the prison. As they ventured into the woods, Luka sensed something was amiss, alerting Yuton and preparing for potential danger while protecting Izuku. Izuku observed the surroundings, noting the emergence of wood elementals from the trees. He felt no concern as the elementals charged toward them. He instructed his companions to handle the situation. Yuton ignited one of his axes with fire and swung it at an approaching elemental, slicing through its wooden form with ease. He quickly pivoted and struck another elemental with his ice-coated axe, freezing it solid before slamming it to the ground, where it shattered into fragments. The elementals began to use their magic, attempting to sap their strength and vitality. Yuton remained unfazed, continuing his assault. Luka, fueled by determination, unleashed her sharp claws and swift movements against the elementals. She swiftly dispatched one, tearing its head off, then tackled another to the ground, driving her arm through its core and pulling it back. She wielded the defeated elemental's body as a weapon, sending another flying into a tree with a powerful strike. After a brief struggle, Yuton and Luka finished off the last two elementals. Luka took a bite from one of the fallen foes. Once they had completed their task, they approached Izuku and knelt before him, apologizing for the wait. Izuku noted that their numbers had been more than expected and expressed concern about the possibility of further encounters. He picked up an elemental core and had an idea, stating that one should fight fire with fire. He used his magic to restore the elementals but infused their cores with his power, bending them to his will. Luka inquired why he hadn't transformed them earlier. Izuku explained that it would have required imbuing his magic into each individual, but this method allowed him to spread it more efficiently. He commanded the newly corrupted elementals to take out the others, and they obeyed, bowing before retreating into the woods. Izuku then urged his companions to move forward. They continued their journey, and as they walked, Izuku playfully grabbed Luka's arm, whispering that she would be rewarded after their mission. Luka's excitement was evident as they approached a tower guarded by two mages. Upon revealing themselves, the guards were taken aback, questioning how they had bypassed the elementals. Izuku calmly explained that the elementals had cleared the way for him. As corrupted elementals emerged behind him, the guards were struck with fear, but before they could react, their strength was drained, leaving them as mere husks. As they passed by the guards, Yuton attempted to open the door but was repelled. He swung his axe at it, but the result was the same. Izuku raised his hand, halting Yuton. He noted the presence of runes next to the door and extracted the soul of one of the fallen guards. Yuton used this soul to input the correct combination into the runes, causing the door to open. They entered the tower, with some corrupted elementals remaining outside as sentinels. Izuku moved purposefully down the dimly lit hallway, his footsteps echoing against the cold walls. He recalled the guards' fragmented memories, which revealed the location of the prisoners confined in the lower levels. He mused about the potential usefulness of the prisoners and inquired if any were suitable. Yuton, walking beside him, confirmed that there were two who would be adequate. Luka followed closely, her confidence evident as she anticipated what lay ahead. As they approached the bottom of the prison, they encountered guards who demanded to know their identity. One guard met his end at the hands of an elemental, which reduced him to dust. The prisoners, terrified, fell silent as Yuton stepped forward, asserting that they would listen to Izuku. Once the room was quiet, Izuku addressed the prisoners, promising them freedom and vengeance against those who had wronged them, provided they served him. Yuton gripped his axe, but Izuku raised his arm to stop him. He acknowledged their skepticism but declared his power to make the world submit to him. He donned his armor, shocking the prisoners, and proclaimed himself the successor of Sauron, inviting them to join him in bringing the old world to its knees. The prisoners cheered enthusiastically as Izuku opened their cells, ready to embrace their newfound freedom. Two more cells remained locked, but as two elementals entered, the sound of shackles being removed echoed through the chamber. Suddenly, two of the elementals were blown away, lying defeated on the ground. 𝗬𝗏 and 𝗬𝐵 stood before Izuku, 𝗬𝗏 gripping both axes while 𝗬𝐵's claws elongated. Izuku instructed them to take their new companions back to base, assuring them he would join shortly. 𝗬𝗏 hesitated, expressing concern about leaving him behind, but Izuku's eyes glowed ominously as he questioned 𝗬𝗏's obedience. Apologizing, 𝗬𝗏 bowed, and 𝗬𝐵 nodded in agreement. A summoning circle appeared beneath them, and they vanished. Izuku then observed figures emerging from their cells. One was a woman with long black hair, and the other a man with dark hair and yellow eyes, marked by a scar on his left cheek. Recognizing their potential as formidable fighters, Izuku informed them that they had chosen not to serve him, leaving him with only one option. He commanded the elementals to attack. The elementals surged forward, crackling with energy. Suddenly, the female prisoner charged like a bolt of lightning, delivering powerful punches that sent the elementals crashing against the walls, which crumbled under the force. Meanwhile, the male prisoner spotted a sword on the ground amid the chaos. With adrenaline fueling him, he lunged for it, swinging the blade with astonishing speed and precision, slicing through the elementals as if they were nothing. Izuku clapped, acknowledging their impressive display. However, he warned them that it would not be enough to defeat him. In an instant, he caught the female prisoner's fist and seized the sword from the male prisoner, pushing them back with a force that sent them flying. They quickly regained their footing a few feet away. Curious about their identities, Izuku asked for their names. The male prisoner introduced himself as 𝗵𝐽, his voice steady and defiant. The female prisoner, 𝗕𝗏, followed suit, her tone filled with determination. Izuku introduced himself, noting their foreign origins and acknowledging the challenge they presented. 𝗕𝗏 declared that if they wished to join his cause, he must first defeat them. Understanding the challenge, Izuku agreed, and the three resumed their fierce battle, the sounds echoing through the cold prison walls. 𝗵𝐽 and 𝗕𝗏 unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks, which Izuku skillfully countered, blocking their blows with impressive agility. In a swift motion, he captured 𝗕𝗏's wrist and 𝗵𝐽's leg, hurling them in opposite directions with tremendous force, causing them to crash into the prison wall, leaving cracks in their wake. Before the dust settled, 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗵𝐽 sprang back up, undeterred. 𝗵𝐽 formed a precise hand signal, invoking a technique that enveloped the area in a thick, swirling haze, obscuring visibility. Izuku scanned the area, unable to see them as 𝗵𝐽 appeared behind him. He quickly turned and threw a punch, but 𝗵𝐽 transformed into black smoke upon impact, surprising Izuku as multiple clones emerged. Using earth magic, Izuku attempted to strike the clones, but they dissipated into mist. 𝗕𝗏 then appeared behind him, her fist charged with electricity, landing a punch that sent him forward. 𝗵𝐽, now above him, aimed to stab with his sword covered in dark mist, but Izuku intercepted the blade just in time. Impressed by their techniques, Izuku declared his intent to have them join him. Their attacks failed to faze him, and they retreated into the mist. Concentrating, Izuku tapped into his magical abilities to locate his opponents. He stealthily approached 𝗵𝐽, who sensed his presence and prepared to strike. However, Izuku was quicker, delivering a powerful punch that sent 𝗵𝐽 staggering back, dazed. As the mist began to clear, 𝗕𝗏's determination ignited. She launched herself forward, her muscles coiling as she infused her fist with a potent mix of ice, fire, and lightning. Izuku, sensing her intent, mirrored her motion, preparing to counter the impending clash with his own quirk. The air around them crackled with energy as they prepared for the next phase of their battle. The tension between them intensified, a palpable sense of anticipation hanging in the air as they prepared for a climactic confrontation. In that moment, both fighters unleashed their punches, their fists colliding with such force that a shockwave rippled through the surroundings, causing the walls and ground to tremble. 𝗕𝗏 pressed forward, determined to continue the fight. Izuku, with a surge of power, overcame her resistance, striking her hand and then targeting her midsection, causing her to recoil painfully and crash against the wall. As the prison walls began to shudder and crack, a thunderous roar echoed through the corridors. Dust and debris cascaded from the ceiling, signaling that their time was limited. Izuku, maintaining his composure, declared it was time to leave. He swiftly moved to lift 𝗵𝐻𝗄 and 𝗕𝗏, focusing his energy to activate his teleportation ability. The air shimmered around them, and just as they disappeared from sight, a large chunk of concrete fell in the exact spot they had occupied moments before, sending a cloud of dust and rubble into the air. With a necessary escape accomplished, Izuku hoped they were far enough from the impending disaster. Upon arriving at the castle, Izuku emerged from the shadows, his heart racing from the intensity of the earlier battle. 𝗵𝐻𝗄 lay unconscious over his shoulder, his breath faint, while Izuku effortlessly supported 𝗕𝗏 with his other arm as he navigated the grand hallways adorned with ancient stonework and flickering torches that cast dancing shadows. As he entered the castle, Uten approached him with a blend of respect and concern, bowing deeply to acknowledge Izuku's arrival. He noted the two unconscious figures in Izuku's care and expressed his relief. Izuku's expression reflected both exhaustion and determination as he instructed Uten to take them for healing as soon as they regained consciousness. His voice carried an urgency that underscored his responsibility for their safety. Uten responded with assurance, gently taking 𝗵𝐻𝗄 and 𝗕𝗏 from Izuku's grasp and carrying them toward the infirmary, where healing magic awaited. Izuku watched them depart before turning his thoughts to the next steps in his journey. Over the following days, he kept a watchful eye on the dynamics of his expanding army. He orchestrated strategic raids by the orc forces on nearby villages, aimed at securing essential gear for the dark mages under his command. The orcs, fierce and relentless, gathered not only weapons but also various resources to enhance their magical capabilities. In his quest for power, Izuku employed arcane techniques to influence the minds of any blacksmiths and mages they captured. With their newfound allegiance, these skilled individuals were compelled to create more potent weapons, durable armor, and enchanting magical accessories to bolster Izuku's forces. One afternoon, while surveying the progress of his troops, Izuku noticed 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗵𝐻𝗄 approaching him with respectful bows, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. He inquired about their progress, eager to hear their reports. 𝗕𝗏 informed him that the mages were steadily improving under his guidance, showcasing significant growth in their abilities. 𝗵𝐻𝗄 added that the orc warriors were also making remarkable strides, not only training hard but also adapting and experimenting with various strategies for different battlefield scenarios. His enthusiasm was infectious as he detailed how the orcs began incorporating cunning tactics alongside their brute strength, preparing for effective engagements in future conflicts. Izuku nodded, feeling a swell of satisfaction at their progress. The foundation of his army was solidifying, and he sensed great things ahead. He encouraged them to continue their excellent work, and they expressed their gratitude before returning to their positions. Izuku appointed his higher-level subordinates as generals, assigning them teams to lead. Initially, some resisted having female leaders, but their minds quickly changed when 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏 challenged them to a fight, easily defeating them and instilling respect for their strength. Izuku sat in the grand throne room, surrounded by ornate decor and the faint scent of smoke from the nearby fireplace. On his lap sat Luca, a petite girl with bright eyes, happily gnawing on a piece of meat attached to a bone. Her delight was evident, though crumbs decorated her cheeks. Izuku chuckled at the sight and gently wiped the remnants away with his sleeve, prompting a cheerful giggle from her. Suddenly, his mind pulsed with a familiar energy, a thought communication from his friend Ochako. He sensed her presence even before her voice resonated in his mind, inquiring if everything was all right on his end. Izuku assured her that all was well, curious about the situation on her side. Ochako updated him on the kingdom's struggle against the undead knight he had unleashed, noting that they were gaining the upper hand with the help of mages wielding holy magic. She also mentioned the prison incident, which had taken them by surprise, and their ongoing efforts to track down the escapees. Izuku furrowed his brow, seeking more information about their allies. Ochako's voice filled with excitement as she revealed that more people were joining their cause. They had managed to keep their meetings secret for a time, but were discovered by the ragdoll. They had no choice but to engage her and a few other members of the WWP who obstructed them. However, after explaining their situation, they found unexpected support from classmates who understood the feeling of being outcast. Izuku felt a wave of relief wash over him, and as he listened to Ochako's words, he sensed hope for their growing numbers. May and Melissa had successfully integrated themselves into the Golem project, and soon, all their secrets would be within reach. Izuku nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face, feeling optimistic about the advancements being made. Ochako shifted her tone to a more personal one, mentioning that she had a question she had been meaning to ask him. Curious, Izuku encouraged her to share her thoughts. She inquired about how he treated the orc and others under his command. Izuku responded that he treated them as lesser beings, except for a select few. Ochako questioned why she felt he would treat them well, especially after his past experiences. Izuku explained that if he showed any weakness, they would not hesitate to challenge him, as they only respected strength. Ochako acknowledged his point and said she had to leave, expressing her affection as she ended the communication. As days turned into weeks, the dimly lit war room buzzed with tense anticipation. Izuku sat surrounded by his trusted subordinates, their faces illuminated by flickering candlelight as they strategized their next moves. The table was covered with maps and reports from recent raids. Tifa stated that the kingdom was in disarray due to the relentless onslaught of the undead knights. This chaos provided them with the perfect opportunity to raid villages far from the kingdom's protective walls. Their strength was growing, and their resources were formidable. At this rate, the kingdom would soon collapse under its despair. Balrog chuckled darkly, shaking his head in disbelief, expressing his amusement at the kingdom's inability to defend itself. Uten nodded in agreement, acknowledging that their progress was thanks to Izuku's extraordinary wisdom and power. Rukta observed Izuku, who appeared lost in thought, staring blankly at the map. Concerned, she asked if he was okay. With a heavy sigh, Izuku shifted in his seat, expressing his boredom and frustration with the current situation. His unexpected comment piqued the interest of his subordinates. Curious, Kinjo inquired about his feelings of boredom. Izuku explained that everything was proceeding so smoothly that he felt a sense of ennui. The small victories, while significant, were not enough to instill true fear in their enemies. He longed to unleash genuine terror upon the kingdom. With fierce ambition, he declared that they would leave this continent behind and conquer elsewhere. A tense silence followed as his words sank in, leaving his subordinates to ponder the possibilities of their expanded ambitions. Excitement mingled with apprehension in the air. Tifa, furrowing her brow, asked where they should head next. Izuku, a mix of frustration and determination on his face, explained that he could only teleport to places he had been before. He clenched his fist, recalling past encounters that haunted him. Uten pragmatically suggested they build ships, acknowledging that gathering materials would be easy, but construction would take time. Izuku surprised everyone with his next declaration. He stated they only needed one ship, and he would board it with a select few. His confidence stunned the group into silence. Aura, wide-eyed, questioned why he would go alone. Izuku explained that once he reached the new continent, he could create a portal to summon his army and conquer anyone in their way. His tone left no room for argument, and Kinjo quickly agreed to start preparations. As the others filed out of the room, Izuku remained behind, lost in thought. He stared at the ceiling, dreaming of conquest and the challenges that awaited him. A smile crept across his lips as he imagined the possibilities. Just then, Poka entered the room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Izuku looked up with concern, sensing her urgency. She reminded him of his promise to spend time together once he finished his work. Realizing his oversight, Izuku's expression softened. He lifted her into his arms, her laughter filling the room. With enthusiasm, he asked what she wanted to do first as they headed toward the door, closing it behind them. The promise of a fun-filled afternoon stretched ahead like an open adventure waiting to be explored. Izuku stood confidently on the bustling dock of the port they had recently conquered with remarkable ease. His gaze was fixed on the sleek ship they had built over the past few months. He had orchestrated the capture of the local population, compelling them into 𝐿BR to assemble the vessel. Despite the challenges, Izuku remained unfazed, knowing that the fallen workers had been transformed into ghouls through dark magic, turning tragedy into a strategic advantage. To him, this victory was not merely about conquest but about utilizing every resource, whether lifeless or alive, to further his ambitions. Izuku gazed thoughtfully at the grand, sturdy ship docked at the harbor, its sails fluttering gently in the breeze. Standing before him was 𝗕𝗄𝗁, a stern-faced orc, who bowed respectfully. 𝗕𝗄𝗁 informed Izuku that the ship was ready for departure. Izuku nodded, observing keenly as several muscular and vigilant orcs loaded crates of supplies and weapons into the ship's hold. He expressed his approval, noting their progress, and 𝗕𝗄𝗁 indicated that they would be ready to set sail within 2 hours. Izuku straightened and addressed his companions, instructing them to gather everyone for his decision on who would join him on the voyage. 𝗕𝗄𝗁 nodded affirmatively and then discreetly disappeared into the shadows. Soon, Izuku's generals assembled before him in a dimly lit war room, standing at attention with expressions of anticipation and concern. With a commanding presence, Izuku addressed them, stating that he would select those who would accompany him on a crucial mission. He intended to take all of them, as their skills were essential for the upcoming battles. However, he recognized that this decision could create challenges. Taking all the capable leaders might leave their army without a clear commander, allowing the enemy to gain an advantage. Thus, some would need to stay behind to oversee other strategic responsibilities and ensure their forces remained coordinated during his absence. The generals nodded in understanding, exchanging determined glances, ready for the challenge ahead. Izuku announced the names of those who would join him on the ship: 𝗕𝗏, 𝗕𝗄𝗁, Mitsuki, Luka, Balrog, and 𝗏𝗃. He invited any objections, but the group remained silent, showing no signs of disagreement. He then instructed those who had volunteered to proceed to the ship, gesturing toward the vessel. As they approached, Izuku observed some of the orcs boarding the boat, their muscular frames and rugged features indicating their role as the scouting party once they reached land. Alongside the orcs, a few experienced human sailors carefully checked the rigging and supplies, their seasoned eyes ensuring everything was in order. Several human females were also present, contributing to the morale of Izuku's forces and ensuring they remained alert and engaged during the voyage. Soon, Izuku and his chosen companions boarded the sea vessel, a sturdy ship with gleaming wooden planks and tall masts swaying gently in the breeze. The captain, a burly man with a weathered face and piercing blue eyes, welcomed them warmly, expressing his joy at being chosen to handle the ship. Izuku nodded, recalling memories of the captain's character and the impression he had left on him throughout the years. The captain shared tales of his past adventures, emphasizing the importance of enjoying life to the fullest. Izuku placed a hand firmly on the captain's shoulder in a gesture of camaraderie and respect, his eyes shining with anticipation and trust. The captain nodded solemnly, feeling the weight of the responsibility ahead, and then turned to his quarters, which he magically expanded for comfort. Izuku settled into a hammock woven from sturdy, weathered ropes, swaying gently with the soft breeze. He closed his eyes, eager to imagine the adventures awaiting him beyond the horizon. Meanwhile, the captain stood at the helm, issuing commands to his crew with a booming voice, rallying them to raise the anchor and hoist the sails as they prepared to explore the unknown. Nearby, Luka observed the scene with a faint smile, gently pressing 𝗏𝗃 against her chest to keep her warm while 𝗏𝗃 snoozed peacefully, oblivious to the busy preparations around her. Izuku reflected on the strange nature of their previous encounters, pondering how the crew had not flinched during their past confrontations, seemingly accepting their fates. Izuku and his companions stood on the wooden deck of their ship, feeling the gentle caress of the sea breeze carrying the salty aroma of the ocean. This was their first true experience of the vastness of the sea, except for 𝗕𝗏, who had sailed before. 𝗏𝗃 perched atop Izuku's shoulders, her tiny hands gripping his hair as she gazed in awe at the shimmering blue horizon, her eyes wide with wonder at the endless expanse of water. Overwhelmed with joy, 𝗏𝗃 hugged Izuku's head tightly, her tiny body trembling with excitement. Izuku, feeling the warmth of her embrace, smiled warmly, cherishing the unforgettable moment. The captain reminisced about his first time at sea, sharing that it was an experience he would never forget. Izuku carefully lowered 𝗏𝗂𝐁 from his shoulders, supporting her tiny frame as Luca and Tifa eagerly approached to introduce her to the bustling ship, with its creaking wooden decks and towering masts. The captain remarked on 𝗏𝗂𝐁's exceptional nature, noting that most children didn't develop proper sea legs until they were much older. Izuku shared a hint of regret, explaining that 𝗏𝗂𝐁 had been blind and had to navigate using her heightened senses, hearing, scent, and touch. He wished he had met her earlier so she wouldn't have endured so much during her early struggles in life, and he felt a blend of respect and sympathy for her resilience. Izuku glanced at the horizon, where the clouds were thickening, signaling the progress of their journey. He was curious about how long it would take to reach their destination. The captain, taking a slow puff from his ornate pipe, let the smoke curl around his rugged features. He estimated that it would take about half a year, including time for additional supplies, restocking provisions, and accounting for any unexpected delays. Izuku nodded thoughtfully, rubbing his chin. He expressed that he was in no rush, preferring to enjoy the journey. With a content smile, he returned to his quarters, his footsteps softly echoing on the wooden deck. Suddenly, he noticed the captain's foot shaking slightly, a subtle tremor that caught his attention. Looking down, he observed the movement and muttered that a storm was approaching. The captain moved to prepare the ship for the impending weather, adjusting the rigging and alerting the crew with deft hands. As the fierce storm intensified, the wind howled through the darkened skies, tearing at the sails and rigging. Rain poured down in relentless sheets, blurring the horizon and obscuring the ship's deck. Bright forks of lightning illuminated the tumultuous sky, casting fleeting shadows over the churning waves below. The sea grew higher and more treacherous, pounding the hull with relentless force as the ship was battered by wave after wave. Amidst the chaos, the captain, gripping the wheel with steely resolve, rallied the crew, urging them to show Neptune that the storm meant nothing to them. Meanwhile, thanks to sturdy insulation and thick wooden walls, Izuku and the others remained dry and warm in his well-appointed quarters despite the raging storm outside. He was comfortably seated in an armchair, engrossed in a thick hardcover book when a knock echoed on the door. When he called for the visitor to enter, the captain stepped in, drenched from the pouring rain, water streaming from his coat and cap. Izuku placed his book on a nearby table and looked up with concern. The captain informed him that the weather was extreme but not unusual for the crew. However, he warned that their area had recently become infested with pirates, posing a danger to their ship. Izuku acknowledged this information sincerely as they both heard the distant ringing of a ship's bell, signaling an alert. The captain assessed the situation, calmly yet tensely, and asked what they should do. Izuku suggested letting the pirates board if they were so eager, planning to send some of his orcas to join the fight. He also expressed interest in what supplies the pirates might have gathered, which could turn the tide in their favor. The captain swiftly returned to alert the crew and prepare for the imminent encounter. Turning to Tifa, Izuku instructed her to prepare the orcs for battle and ensure that any who surrendered would be kept alive for valuable information. She nodded in understanding and exited the captain's quarters, heading below deck to prepare the orc soldiers for the upcoming confrontation. As the ship navigated through turbulent waters on a cloudy afternoon, crew members labored diligently to keep it afloat, tying intricate knots in thick ropes and inspecting crates of supplies secured in the cargo hold. A merchant arrogantly reminded the captain of the valuable cargo on board, claiming its worth surpassed that of the crew. The captain, suppressing his anger, replied that they were at the mercy of the sea. One merchant, leaning against the railing, declared that it looked like smooth sailing ahead. The captain sharply retorted, warning him not to tempt fate. The merchant, frustrated, questioned the captain's belief in superstition, pointing out that they hadn't seen any pirates or suspicious activity in the past 5 days. The captain insisted that their silence had kept them safe and instructed him to be quiet as he scanned the horizon for any signs of danger. Meanwhile, a vigilant crew member in the crow's nest used a telescope to monitor the vast expanse for any approaching threats. His sharp eyes detected a distant movement that grew clearer as he adjusted the lens. He saw Izuku's ship rapidly closing in from behind. Urgently, he called out to the crew that a ship was fast approaching from the rear. The captain turned to the merchant, who opened his mouth to speak but found no words. Instead, he averted his gaze, eyes fixed on the horizon. The captain commanded the crew to prepare the cannons, loosen the sails, and batten down the hatches for a fight. His orders echoed through the ship as crew members responded, unsheathing swords, grabbing muskets, and loading cannons for battle. Soon, Izuku's ship appeared directly behind them, its sails billowing as it gained speed. The merchant urged the captain to fire the cannons, anxiety evident in his voice. The captain remained calm, waiting as the enemy vessel drew nearer, its hull slicing through the churning waves. Before long, the enemy boat was in clear view, revealing new planks and flags fluttering in the wind. The captain turned the ship to face them squarely and commanded the crew to fire. However, before he could finish, the merchant shouted for the cannons to be launched, causing chaos as the crew scrambled to respond. The crew members had already lit the fuse, igniting the gunpowder barrel and propelling the cannonball forward. Unfortunately, the shot was premature. The cannonballs splashed harmlessly into the water instead of striking the enemy ship. In that instant, Izuku's boat pulled level alongside theirs, grapple hooks flying through the air and securing the two ships together. The captain grabbed the merchant by the collar, his face flushed with urgency and determination. He expressed his frustration, blaming the merchant for the early shot and forcefully throwing him onto the weathered wooden planks before drawing his gleaming sword with a swift motion. He commanded his men to fight fiercely as the distant sound of orcs' guttural roars grew louder, approaching their ship. The gunmen hurriedly aimed their rifled muskets, firing a steady barrage into the oncoming orcs, each shot finding its mark and sending several orcs tumbling into the icy, churning sea, while others staggered onto the ship's deck, filled with rage and pain. The orcs roared, their spiky weapons glinting in the sunlight as they charged forward, clashing violently with the crew members in a chaotic battle. The sailors fought with all their might, their swords slicing through the orcs' tough skin and leaving deep wounds. Despite their injuries, the orcs pressed on, swinging heavy weapons with brutal force, toppling some crew members overboard into the turbulent sea. 𝐒𝐽𝐽 skillfully navigated across the wooden spars of the sails, balancing effortlessly on the narrow beams atop the masts while remaining steady. Meanwhile, the captain was engaged in a fierce battle with an orc, shielding himself as the orc swung its massive axe. The captain dodged just in time and moved his dagger into the orc's exposed thigh, causing the creature to stagger back. However, the orc continued its relentless assault, swinging its axe with intent to crush the captain. The captain dodged the attacks, but the orc feigned a swing with its right arm and then unexpectedly struck with its left, catching the captain off guard and sending him crashing onto the wooden deck. The orc approached the captain, who was crawling on the deck. As the orc swung its weapon down, the captain rolled to the side, holding his sword and managed to pierce the orc's neck, causing it to collapse to the ground. The captain then got up, realizing the fight was lost, and dropped his sword, raising his hands in surrender. His crew, seeing this, followed suit. Soon, the merchant, captain, and what remained of his crew found themselves surrounded by orcs. The merchant, trembling, whispered to the captain, questioning why the orcs were not attacking. The captain explained that they were waiting for their leader, who he suspected was no ordinary foe. As a plank connected to the ship, they heard footsteps and turned to see Izuku walking across, soon standing before them as they awaited their fate. Izuku surveyed the scene, the battered captain amidst the wreckage of his crew, the lifeless body of an orc sprawled on the deck, and the other captain gazing back at him with a mix of caution and defiance. He expressed his admiration for the captain's ability to slay one of his orcs and asked for his name. The captain hesitated before revealing it. Izuku nodded thoughtfully and informed him he had two options. Before he could finish, an orc lunged forward, grabbing the merchant and forcefully slamming him into the wooden planks, silencing his cries. Izuku then laid out the options. They could die there and he would take whatever supplies were aboard, or they could join him and gain their freedom. A crew member questioned why they would join after the loss of their friends, to which Izuku calmly replied that it was in self-defense, as they had attacked first. Another crew member, curious, asked what Izuku meant by freedom. Izuku explained that joining him would allow them to pursue their desires without restrictions. He had seen their longing for liberation during the battle, how they fought fiercely, and promised that if they joined him, their lives would be filled with purpose and adventure. Izuku posed a choice: to live as mere servants to others or to embrace a life of true freedom under his banner, where no treasure would be beyond their reach. The captain and his crew stood speechless, the weight of his words sinking in. Noticing their hesitation, Izuku decided to clarify his intentions, gathering the spirits of the fallen crew and manifesting them within weapons embedded in the ground. The captain demanded to know what was happening as Izuku turned to one of the orcs, commanding it to pick up a weathered sword lying in the dirt. The orc hesitated briefly before obeying, and as its hand touched the weapon, its eyes glowed bright green for a moment, gasping for air. The orc was bewildered, questioning what had happened to it, feeling as if it had returned from the brink of death. Its voice had transformed, now deeper and resonating with an unusual strength. Michael, filled with astonishment, looked at the figure before him, struggling to comprehend the situation. He turned to his captain, confusion evident in his demeanor, seeking answers. Izuku swiftly took the weapon from the orc's grasp, and in that moment, the creature's fierce appearance softened, revealing its original, peaceful form. Izuku explained that he had the ability to revive fallen comrades, requiring only a single touch of the weapon. He glanced at his crew, contemplating their reactions. After a brief, tense silence, Michael nodded resolutely, acknowledging Izuku's power and the potential of his offer with a respectful bow. The merchant, regaining consciousness, felt a throbbing headache and blurred vision. He grimly warned that there would be consequences for betrayal. Izuku approached him with a steady demeanor, his expression intense. He challenged the merchant, noting his silence, and without waiting for an answer, he declared that the merchant's connections and wealth meant nothing in this world. In Izuku's presence, he was as insignificant as anyone else. The merchant, desperate, pleaded for mercy, claiming he had something to offer. Izuku, remaining calm, firmly grasped the merchant's head and used his magic to delve into the merchant's mind, extracting valuable information. Once he finished, the merchant's body convulsed, and he was tossed to the orcs, who eagerly consumed him. Izuku then shared the gathered information with Michael and William through a mental link. With confidence, he declared it was time to move on, turning back toward the ship he had arrived on, ready for their next conquest.